right, good morning, people. We are back with another Just Chatting session post the Chino conference, searching for a spiritual home. I got back to Chicago yesterday afternoon, pretty wiped out, but I figured it'd be a good time to chat, maybe with those who were there um, and want to reflect a little bit, or those who weren't there and have questions about how it went, what it was like, who showed up, what they said, etc. So if anybody is interested in jumping on, you're welcome to. Chad's already in the comments early. I wonder if it's because we're older that we get places early. I did survive the Bears. Wait, are we talking about the Chicago Bears? Because I'm not sure I'm quite there with that. But yes, it was my first time camping in more than 10 years. But that was fun. That actually might have been one of, I don't want to put down the rest of the conference, but the camping part was one of the great parts of the conference. Just sitting around the fire with a bunch of dudes and ladies, listening to people unpack some of the stuff that they heard, just getting to know people. That was a great part of the experience. We even had people that weren't staying at the campground just come and visit the campfire before they went back to their hotels or home or wherever they were staying. Yeah, I mean, we must have had like 50 people at least at the campsite after each night. It was a blast. It was interesting for me because I feel like I went there with a bit of a different motivation than maybe many others. In the sense that I feel like I ran into a lot of people that were there because they wanted to have people to talk to about these things. And I'm part of the Chicago meetup, and I have a lot of friends that I am able to talk about these things to. So I was kind of more there to encourage what's happening in this little corner, to get some information for the organization and touch base with some people, and even to provide somebody else to talk to. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was how big the need is for like an embodied community for people to talk to. Like I met some really cool guys, but it was clear to me that there was a lot of stuff going on in their minds for a long time that they hadn't really been able to share with anyone. And it was different for me, but I was so happy that they were able to make it there. Hey, Tayo, where are you right now? I can't remember. Are you leaving today, heading back to London? I think I remember you saying something about this afternoon, but I can't remember. I don't always pay attention when you talk. But yeah, it ended up being a great. The talks were really good. Very much in line with what we're kind of already used to hearing from these guys. It was really cool to hear them talking together, like having the dialogue. They had it broken up. Sometimes it was just Vervaeke and Pajot. Sometimes it was just Paul and one of the Johns. What was really cool was listening to Vervaeke doing his talk the first time. He was really more animated than I had ever seen him. He kind of went into preacher mode, and I thought that was very cool. I really appreciate and enjoy watching his journey through all of this. Look forward to seeing more. How's it adjusting back to real life, Tayo? Back to work, huh, Chad? How's it going there?
It's going. I just had to connect my audio. You like that little gut I got going on there?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Nothing like a
How
gut
you?
in overalls.
Right? How you feeling?
I'm feeling better today. Yesterday I was super wiped out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pleasantly wiped out. You know, like just that satisfying type thing. You know, that happens.
Yeah,
Like,
have you had some time to kind of digest and unpack in your mind some of the stuff that went on?
oh, I mean, well, yeah, I'm just thinking about um, what to do next. Um,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot to consider right now, and yeah, just thinking about the this little corner space in general, and um, what what are we doing? Just considering more of that, and trying to get hooked on some sort of well, waiting for inspiration to come right now as it
Mm,
relates to like what I do on online. 'Cause it's not really there right now. If
okay.
I make a lot of noise, it's because I'm going to be drilling. So tell me if how loud this is.
Uh,
How is
yeah,
that?
pretty loud.
Okay. Um, so yeah, no, just thinking about things like that right now. Um, talked to my wife yesterday about Israel because Chezi brought it up, and so we're considering what that'll be like. We can't really, we probably can't really afford to do it as far, but if we can get help, we could definitely go. So,
Yeah, it's one of those things where now that I had this experience, hey Tayo, um,
Kyle, what's up, buddy?
Sup, Chad?
Looking good, my friend.
as I think about Israel, I mean, I obviously would love to fundraise and be able to provide like scholarships to get some people over there that can't afford it.
Yeah,
But it's also just the opportunity to have an event like this for people that are in that part of the world that weren't able to get all the way over to
right.
so yeah, I have to have a lot of conversations with Hezi and some of the other people that are helping to organize it and see how much we can raise to help out and to help relieve the cost for some other folks.
All right, right. Well, you can always put me on the docket. I can always find something to talk about. I certainly won't be as great as Jonathan Apatow or John Vervaeke, but um, no, man. See, I'm just trying to grift right now, so I can grift my way to the Holy Land.
Grip or grasp? Because we're not supposed to
Grift.
grasp. I think that's what they said.
Yeah, but yeah, we can. We're not supposed to grasp, but we should be grifting.
Oh, okay. How you feeling, Tayo?
Um, I feel good. Just gonna mute you, Chad.
Okay, thank.
I'm muting Chad while he's drilling while Tayo's talking.
Yeah, I feel good. I feel good. Slightly tired, but not as tired as I thought I would be, considering the fact that you know I left LA at 4 o'clock and I landed at 12 p.m. on Tuesday.
And
So,
you didn't get much sleep during the weekend either.
but I don't get much sleep in general anyway. I live off 4 hours sleep for most of the days and then crash one day
How
for
old are
like
you?
hours. 29,
Okay,
28.
29 is when that kind of stopped for me, mainly because I was married. But yeah, all through my 20s, I kind of lived that lifestyle. I I was a musician, so and I had a day job, so I'd be up late at a gig or whatever, and then up early for work.
But yeah, I figured. Chad, I've read your Substack a couple times now. Actually, the actually not alone one. It's brilliant. It really is. It echoes the thoughts of a lot of us,
Mhm.
especially over at Chino at the campsites.
Yeah, that was. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, the camp. I don't know. There's something really about that. Um, Everybody can let their hair down and sitting around a fire and having. But everything about the whole event was just talk, chatter the whole thing. I mean, it was like people are very excited, and I suppose my thinking and moving ahead on all of this would be, how do you keep that alive? And one way I think to keep it alive is to not oversaturate with with things. So I think that's something to consider um, in light of not grasping and all that stuff. So that'd be my thoughts on a lot of it. How do it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever spent time with your loved one every day, all day. It's nice until it's not.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's important, I think, to consider.
Yeah, 100%. It felt like Comic-Con
Oh
to some
yes,
extent.
yeah, for sure. It's theologicon,
Theological.
philosophicon.
Hereticon.
It's fucking nuts, man.
What I
It's a
thought was
bunch
cool
of
about the campsite thing is it was a time that people could let their hair down, but I feel like there are so many ways that getting a bunch of guys and gals together and letting their hair down can go really poorly.
yeah,
And we didn't really have to deal with a whole lot of that nonsense.
not a whole lot.
Not a whole
Not,
lot. There was a little
not
bit.
a whole lot. Not a whole
Especially
lot.
last night. I was awake for some of it. But it could, I mean, I've been part of those things where they get much worse really fast.
Oh yeah,
And it stayed relatively tame.
Yeah, considering the amount of especially young male energy that was floating around that camp, it was very, very, successful.
you just be glad I wasn't drinking, guys. Just be glad. 'Cause it'd
We
be
thank God for that every day, Chad. We thank God for that every day.
yes, thank you.
You had your fun.
Yeah, I burnt up my chips, man. I'm all out of drink tokens. Speaking of drink tokens, that the pizza place we went to after the
Paintball.
paintball for Jesus, that just reminded me. It was like, I don't know. It was like we're at Chuck E. Cheese's and Comic-Con smashed up all at once for people who are like obsessed with like talking about meaning. That was the other thing I noticed. I don't think I talked to one person there who hadn't fallen into the fold somehow by first discovering Jordan Peterson.
Mm.
And then, but so that always came up, but also kind of parallel with that is like, yeah, but like he's kind of he's like, it seems as though we're in a different space than Peterson, most of us now, which is interesting to me.
Well, I had this conversation with one person there where I feel like even now, if I listen to Jordan Peterson, a lot of what he's going on about is just a continuation of all the stuff that he was going on before. So it kind of feels sometimes like I've already heard it. And it's not that I disagree or I've moved past it, but I've heard it before.
Right.
This is newer, if that makes sense.
That's right. What do you think, Kyle?
I think it's very interesting. I was speaking with Dunny on the way back on Sunday, and he brought up the fact that it seemed everyone that came through the Plutonian route to the TLC felt it important to make a disclaimer that I am no longer aligned with Peterson as I used to be.
Right.
And I find it interesting that they felt it was important to do it at this conference. It was sort of like I think I made the analogy of it's like going to Comic-Con and saying, "Oh, I'm a Batman fan, but I wasn't a Batfleck fan." That's
Oh,
that's
be
like,
careful there. Be careful.
No,
are you a
that's
Batman
right.
fan, bro?
You're touching on a sensitive topic right now.
Only grounds.
No, but I think that's right. It's interesting. It's like there was a certain type of signal that was being put out there about Peterson.
Yeah,
But I think and now it wasn't like a negative thing. It was just more like I don't know. It was like kind of like what are we on? What it was almost like a call, like a question. What are we doing now? Like what are we doing now? Because it hasn't really been named. Although like I said in my article, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody, so we're not going to say what was said.
Mm.
But in light, like Tile, in light of what I wrote, did you see what I was trying to say there?
yeah.
About yeah. Um,
It's hard to talk about without spoiling it, but I think the videos are coming out pretty quickly, so
yeah.
soon you'll be able to see what you're pointing to.
Hmm. Yeah, man, it's so good. It was really great. I got to spend. I felt like I've known Grizz forever. By the way, I spent probably the most time with him because he was just helping me out getting around. So there was that too, which was interesting.
Yeah, at some point I was sat on a bench with Graham and I just tapped his head like this all came from your head out
Yeah,
onto the world and you made this happen.
yeah, no, it did though. I mean, think about all the stuff that the contribution that he made. I mean,
Yeah,
that's why this is like like Peugeot said, it takes a village, and it really did take a village, which is
Did
interesting.
Felipe's asked if anybody get married there, but that's something we didn't pay much attention to. But all of the females that I talked to that were there were married or had a boyfriend or something like that. I didn't notice any single females there, or at least I didn't talk to any of them.
we didn't have a marriage, but Jacob was able to convince Anthony to get a cheap ring and propose to his girlfriend and get a more expensive ring when he's able to. And I can tell you, he's seriously considering it. So,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
that would be cool. Now, you guys were both estuary leaders while we were there.
Yeah, yeah,
How was
So,
that for you guys?
great. You go first. You want to mute
yeah,
me for a little bit?
yeah,
Yeah, I'll do that.
yeah. I'll go first. It was really, really cool. It was really cool. Um, so I was helping Justin. He was recording an estuary. I was supposed to help him work one of the cameras, but John Van Dung gave me two jobs, so I had an estuary to lead in the morning, and I was at some point I wanted to sort of unpick the people that I would have in my estuary. So I poached Dr. Jim. It's like it would be a good person to have in the team. But there was a number system where I was number 10. I was picking people out of people like Chad. So eventually I was like, I'm just gonna let the people that come to my group come to my group. And boy was it fascinating. We had a variety of opinions and worldviews there. We had Protestant Christian, that was me. We had Ortho Curious, Orthodox, and then we had Brian. Now Brian was a star because Brian came straight from the jungles in Mexico to this conference. Um, he's slightly Gnostic in his view and struggling with a lot of spiritual things. So the conversation became very serious very quickly.
Mm.
And it was really cool to watch everyone, like from the Orthodox perspective, the Protestant perspective, I don't think about a Catholic in there, but yeah, from all of the different perspectives, we were at some point it became like, okay, how do we drag Brian out of this Gnostic pit that he's found himself? And boy, was that cool to watch.
Yeah. So let's see. So yeah, I was number 8, and I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but I thought it was really brilliant the way that they did it, because I'm not sure if people who've never done it would actually have done it, who would have gone into the estuary meetings. And so you just kind of get them as they're coming in and would say, oh, we're going to go do these. And there really wasn't enough time to do a full estuary meeting. So it was like just a really great sample of what to expect. And it worked perfectly because everybody there is strangers pretty much. And so we went in, and it was like the conversation just was great from the beginning. There was that was the first time I had done it on the ground estuary using estuary protocol, and it worked out really great. There was a few times, like there was a couple guys that I talked to who they said that they were atheist, and then they actually were like at one point communist Marxist, like that's how they would have identified. And then like this whole thing, and both of them actually landed in the Orthodox Church, which I think is interesting. The whole Orthodox thing is interesting to me. I don't know. I think it's I think it's good for whomever lands, wherever you land is good with me. I don't care. So like that's always a thing with me. So I'm cool with wherever you find yourself. I don't care if you want to do crystals. I don't give a shit. There at one point, and then the last one I was in was with Raj and Richard and a few other folks. 2 guys who identified as at one point communist atheists, separate from the other people that I had talked with. And it was super interesting sitting there with Raj, who's a Sikh, and an Orthodox, and then a Catholic, and then a guy his name is Richard, who first had his first spiritual experience with the Jesus people in a coffee shop. And it was like this whole thing was like,
yeah, Richard was a really interesting guy.
Yes. And I don't know, I just think it's like there's something so incredibly rich about what happened there, and I think it should be honored. I mean, or like, like we don't want to lose that.
Yeah. Because I mean, it felt super cool and interesting to be on a stage with Raj singing "Leaning on His Everlasting Arms."
It's like the differences that we have is what, and being able to have dinner together and laugh together and not be caught up in our differences, and basically celebrating how we're more the same than we are different, and be able to have conversation and be able to, I think, hold at the highest value that we each are people, and that this exercise, ritual, and practice of seeing each other is something that we cannot afford to lose, and it will not come for free.
Yeah, and yes, Clevis, the cadets were in uniform. But yeah, I totally agree. So I was kind of annoyed at being pushed into, and Chad, we talked about this there, being pushed into the estuary stuff right away, just because I'm kind of a jerk when it comes to stuff like that. And Van Donk just put me in this group. I didn't know anybody there. And we started off with the introductions, and the first person went on for like 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, this guy's a little out there, but whatever. Second guy went on for another 20 minutes. We almost didn't have time for over an hour. We almost didn't have time for all the introductions. But I talked to some of these guys later in the week, and one, it was super cool for them to watch them just as they're going on and on about stuff, saying, "Man, I'm so glad that I found my people, that I can talk to
Right.
people. I've had all this stuff in my head for so long, and even though initially it made me uncomfortable, I was really happy that these guys found this place. And in talking with each one of those guys, they were super cool guys. I mean, this one guy went off for a long time on breathing in water, and I thought he was out of his mind. But then we talked later, and I watched some of his videos, and this guy's like a brilliant guy. I mean, he's really intelligent and really cool, but he just had all this stuff in his mind for so long and didn't really have a whole lot of people to share it with. And so I was like, man, I felt the urgency of estuary.
Yeah. And the whole thing about that Kyle brings up about Grizz having like a way more important role than people are probably saying. Like, so we wouldn't have done paintball. It would have never even been on the radar.
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't have done this music thing, which was
that was huge.
That was so fun. I was like felt right at home doing it. The camping, all that stuff. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say about it other than it was. I don't think I'll ever forget about it.
No, I will not forget about it. I will not forget about the event. More importantly, all of the stories that I've now interacted with mine thanks to this event.
Mhm.
It was so. I think Anthony said something really, really good on Jacob's stream, which was it's usually difficult to get into meaningful conversation. At this event, it was difficult not to get into meaningful conversation.
That's
You
right.
just there's no shallow air here. People just go straight in because they feel there's a trust there. They trust that even if they're going somewhere where they're not too sure, that the person they're talking to will catch them and help them, guide them along. And yeah, I will not be forgetting about this anytime soon.
There was no small talk either. Like you would struggle to find small talk there.
Yeah.
Did any of you guys get to talk with Crow?
No,
The guy
I didn't.
Pajot brought?
No, but I heard something about him.
He just looked cool.
Somebody was saying that he's like a real life saint, like a living saint, living in the desert.
I talked to him for a bit, so it sounds like he does live in the desert. He was a cool dude. We got to talk about all kinds of stuff. But yeah, he seemed like a real cool, almost like sage-like, but still like funny.
Yeah. No, he looked like if Snoop Dogg was a desert father or something. That's what I was thinking, dude.
That is so accurate. You people have no idea. If Snoop Dogg was a desert father, yeah.
Do we have an idea of how many people were there?
Some 200.
I remember thinking I wanted to count at some point, but then I never got around to it.
I don't know
the numbers.
That was a decent number. I mean, it was a pretty huge sanctuary auditorium.
Mega CLC.
Yeah, and it didn't seem empty. It
No.
seemed decently well populated. And then somebody else asked what the ratio of men to women. I would say probably like 9-1. I think there was
Probably.
at least like 24 women, but there definitely was a lot more men. Well, I found interesting with some of the women. Did you guys meet the Russian/Ukrainian couple?
No.
They were at the campsite. But she actually got into Peterson and Pajot, and she was the one that was really into it. And then she got him into it, which I thought was a little bit different. Like most of the people I know, it's like the guy starts, and then maybe his wife becomes suspicious of him, and then she kind of dives in.
All of the women that I spoke to, that was their story. It was their boyfriend, their partner, their husband got into it, and then they get into it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting to meet them because he's like a little bit new. He seemed a little bit newer, but still very much interested in it and everything. But yeah, it was interesting to talk with some of the females and get their perspective on things because a lot of them were different than I anticipated. Like I met one girl that was her boyfriend wasn't there, but she gave me a little bit of their story. But she attends a Messianic Jewish.
Oh, I met her on Sunday. That's how many people there were. I didn't even know she was there, but on Sunday we got to speak. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah.
I spoke to her.
Isn't that Nate's wife, Sarah Ann?
She's not married, so I
Oh,
don't think it's her.
Yeah.
And I'm blanking on her name right now. But she was Hispanic.
Bianca. Is it Bianca? Something
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, so she's a Latina that's here, and then also attends the Messianic Jewish congregation. I thought that was really cool. I mean, it's interesting. Like, it's so unique.
Unique is that's a good word to take away from this event. A lot of unique stories
for sure.
With recognizable patterns to them for this little corner.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All I know is I was very happy to be home. Also, I was very sad to leave. So it was like it was. Yeah, that's the thing we walked away with. Like everybody, I think, got this knew right away. Like, well, clearly this event isn't home. Estuary isn't home. This little corner isn't home. But these are ways to better to better be in our own homes. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's really significant.
That's our estuary meeting ended on Saturday. Was okay. We've had amazing last 2 days. What are you taking back to your local settings, and how are you going to be? Are you going to love better? Was the question that one of the people asked, and I thought it was a great one to end on. I was excited to leave, get back home and get things started because I felt like I was given a lot of juice and a lot of like, okay, just keep running it. There's a thirst for it, estuary that is. There's a thirst for estuary. There's a thirst for these conversations and this style of conversation. The dialogue goes style of conversation, and I'm excited to get that cooking down in London.
Yeah, and I think it was cool to give. I feel like so many. I've always been a bit on the fringes of this little corner, but so many people have spoken so positively of the community that they felt in this virtual environment. But I think those that came out to Chino, it's like, yeah, this virtual environment's cool, but this is way better. Like
way better.
Embodied. Like, I mean, just even meeting you guys in person. Like, I remember I get there and people are hugging me right away. People I've never met before. And that felt awesome. It's like, yeah, I know you, but now I can know you and feel you. And there's this embodied dimension of it that makes it feel more real.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, yes, but I think okay. So yes, and also one can't really wouldn't have existed without the other.
Yeah.
So I'm very grateful for guys like Joey, who started the Bridges of Meaning Discord server and who laid the groundwork for people to be able to get connected in a way that to people that they, because this is the most common thing that I heard out of everything that I heard. And that it's the one thing I've heard the whole time I've been in these conversations is, started listening to Jordan Peterson, and I started thinking about these ideas, and I had nobody to talk to. And so, people who are courageous enough to step out, like Tyler and Joey, who kicked everything off for us, and Paul for being weird enough to think out loud and basically raise a flag for anybody who's like him, and to kind of open up a space where there might have been where there probably is a lack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all,
Yeah, and even the virtual world is so important, because the sense I got is a lot of people that I talked to is they were having trouble finding or building community where they're at in person. And so
Right.
this kind of drew them into, hey, here's a healthy-ish community online.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an important step, is feeling like you can have a healthy community. And then this conference, to a certain degree, kind of pushed towards the next step of having that embodied. But that doesn't negate the need for that initial step of building that virtually. And so I do want to praise it, but at the same time, I think you're right, and I want to be careful not to kind of crap on what has come before. I mean, even I didn't go to the Thunder Bay conference, but without Thunder Bay, there's no Chino.
Right.
And so I don't know how that went, but I am happy that it happened, because it kind of led to this.
Well, if it went anything like this, then there's something very interesting about that. You won't know what it's like until you're at an event. So, hey, I got to text my boss quick, guys. I'll probably hop off for a second.
But yeah, I do agree that without the whole, I mean, we met online, and so that wouldn't have happened outside of that. But yeah, it's all building. We want to keep building on what's there and keep moving forward with it. But without, I mean, even like the Jordan Peterson, so many people got into it from Jordan Peterson, and it's not once we've moved, I feel like even in our meetup, we've moved past the Jordan Peterson stuff. But that doesn't devalue Jordan Peterson or what he's doing or what initially drew us in, because that was incredibly valuable.
Well, I think there's something vital about this experience that we're talking about, of recognizing how things move. Like, just because we're not as enamored by Peterson now doesn't mean we've abandoned him, right? And so I think like this is perhaps a pattern that a lot of us in the culture have, is where we see something shiny, we go to it, we're enamored by it, and then the shine wears off, and then we're off to the next thing. And so I think what's important to glean out of our experience, if you find what we're doing to be important and meaningful, that perhaps you stick around for the guy who still thinks it's shiny, who needs to figure out how to get connected, and not. I don't know. So you guys know I'm always talking about AA, and I don't think Estuary is AA or even this corner, but there are things to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I stay in AA, for one, it's insurance against a relapse, and for two, maybe most importantly, I'm there to help the new guy get acquainted so that he can do the same, and that's how AA has been able to stick around for almost a century, which, you think, well, it's not that long, but in light of alcoholism, it's like, it really is a miracle. And so what we are doing is in much the same way, a miracle. We're able to have productive conversations, share laughs, and be from completely different backgrounds. And our backgrounds are important to us personally, each of us, but as we grow, if we want to be better at where we come from in our backgrounds, then we should be able to share in whatever this is, and not just leave it behind when it's not as shiny as it once was.
Grimm says that his own campfire speech was top notch.
It was pretty good.
I find it weird that he didn't mention my campfire speech where I thanked myself.
Yeah, I remember that. I'm trying to forget it, but I really so the sorry, go ahead, bud.
Yeah, I'll just going off what you've just said, Chad. The fact that it needs constant renewal in the estuary. You don't just want it to be stale. I think that's why I'm still thinking about it, still seeing where I land. But I think I'm gonna land on Viveki being the most important of the three that were on stage, because he allows the people that are deconstructors searching to like find, okay, they can order to Viveki and say, okay, he promises this ecology of practice that I can build for myself, that I can grab this from here, from there. And I think that just that Viveki's existence allows for new people to enter this little corner.
What I liked about Viveki was I feel like Paul feels a bit settled. Pajot feels a bit settled in where they're at. Viveki, I feel like, is on a clear journey.
That's open stance.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, like I said, when I said it, when I initially talked, like when he was going on, he was animated like a preacher.
He really was.
Yeah.
I've never seen him like that before. And that was really cool to see. Okay, now here's the difference. Here's some movement here.
Oh yeah, he was lit, man.
Hey, Lance.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Mr. Lance.
Missed you out there.
Yeah, well, I had a stepson who graduated. If I would have skipped the graduation to go to a Chino event, I could have just packed my bags and set it up for divorce. But well, one of the things I was encouraged, Chad and I had a download of it. Like one of the things I would mention, which is, I don't want to pound the drum, which is like, make no mistake, real life events are where magic happens, right? So even think about that with your friends. Like when you go on a trip, like a hiking trip, or I think about even like men's groups, when we go on retreats and we get out together, there's magic that happens there, right? But this community does not exist without the online community, period. End of story. And the other thing that I would mention is that this is what feeds the online community, is what feeds the live events. What made that so special for people? People they got to know and share. There have been some very personal conversations, whatever. Now you get to go spend time with that person in a live event, right? And let's just say that you could pull off 5 Chino events a year. Now I know that's probably too many, but I'm going large, right? Let's say you could successfully pull off 5 Chino events a year. That's 5 days out of the year. What are you doing the other 360? Right?
That's right.
And so Chad, I loved your Substack when you said, and there's some moments there, I won't do it because you want to wait for the videos to come out. But the point is like, what's happening is the lines of communications are open. People are able to meet people. They see Paul or Pajot or Viveki or whatever. Wait a minute. People are having conversations like this. Like you said, those people were so excited that, they just have this stuff bubbling in them all this time, and they just had to just go on and on just to get it out, Well, if you just focus on live events, that stuff stays Bibled up. Hopefully, and I'm going to be the guy that's going to bang the door for, we are an online community that feeds virtual events that will be spectacular. But we don't want to lose our way. And I know people always want to say, well, this is better. Well, yeah. It's great, but that's the icing. The event's the icing. The cake happens online is the way I would say it. Like that. That's the.
I guess I would phrase it as a journey, right? Like if somebody's alone and has no community, I want them in the virtual community. I want them in the Discord. I want them all that stuff. And now if they're in their virtual community, I want them to be there. I don't want them to leave it, but I also want them to be able to find that embodied version of it as well.
Right,
all of them, it's like I always say, like a religious journey, right?
Right.
Somebody becomes I'm a Christian pastor. Somebody comes into the church. Okay, right now I want them to start their own. At some point, I'm glad that they're in the church, but I want them to have their own kind of spiritual journey with Christ. But once they begin that, I'm happy that they're there. Now I want them to grow, and I want them to eventually mentor somebody else. That doesn't mean I'm not grateful that they initially came into my church, and that aspect is not valuable. And so, yeah, I totally agree that whole online aspect of what we have is vital, because otherwise we don't have any of this other stuff anyway.
It's the reason we exist. It is, and,
Well-
and it will be the reason we exist moving forward. And so, like, the thing that, like, you mentioned the point, and I would just say this, and John, with all respect, why are Pajot and Vander Clay so comfortable? They have their spiritual homes.
Mm.
Paul is a pastor in a CRC. He has a church home. He has a spiritual home. He has a relationship with God. Why is John in the church he's going to die in? Right? He knows where he's going to die. Jonathan Pajot has his spiritual home, and his spiritual home is the Orthodox Church, and he knows, and it gives him all of his direction, and it's his connection to God, and that's the church that he's going to die in. So they've found their spiritual homes. They don't need to create it. And it's like, for me, like, well, I would say this, which is like, when Jonathan Pajot says go to church, like, we are people that come along people's paths and journeys and help them think, ask the big hairy questions, think through things, hopefully allow them to do things. But ultimately, you need to plug into a spiritual home. We're not the spiritual home, and we're not going to build spiritual homes.
And that's why I think the estuary aspect of this event was so vital. I mean, to a certain degree, I used to really make fun of the whole estuary thing. Again, I'm kind of a jerk in that regard. But I think John Van Donk saw a real need there, and he really pushed it in this event. And I really think that was a really strong aspect of the conference, because I know there's several people that are like, oh, I hear there's an estuary or something like that where I'm at. I want to start going to that now. And other people that I want to start one where I'm at. And I think that's really cool.
No, and I think the estuary is amazing. And so we'll have a few of those pop up in certain cities, right? But we're a global community. I mean, Taylor, you come over, like, you flew all the way across the pond. You know, we're a global community, and I think I think absolutely. But I would even say an estuary that is the best estuary we could think of it. It's not a spiritual home. Now, it might be a placeholder for a period of time for someone to come in to be able to have the conversations, but like Richard Rohr's and Jonathan Pajot's conversation, which I really enjoyed, the universal history and then the nationalism, and they were talking about some stories or some places can't handle the weight of everything, and kind of in 12-step life, people might have a concept of what their understanding of God is, but what they'll find when the pressures of life comes, if you're not high enough, if your aim is not high enough, if it's not there, it'll collapse under its weight. So look how hard it is for Protestant churches and schisms and collapse. You know, it's hard even if you do things for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And this is a guy who participates in estuary and loves estuary. Mm-hmm. So again, Chad, I thought like you were really onto it in your Substack, which is, we are the place where the lines of communications are open. And like I love how Jess P talks about what happens here when like the tumblers click and people start to make sense of meaning and everything else. He calls that healing. Like healing is starting to happen when you start coming together. I think we're a place where healing comes. And then, like you say, no matter where you live, there are places to plug into in your community to then be a light of what this community is, but then go plug into a real spiritual home, whatever that might be for you. Sikh, Christian, temple, right, whatever.
So just real quick before I get muted again, I know we've made like comments about salt water versus fresh water, but so I think the online aspect of this is the salt water, and so you can't have the estuary without it. And the fresh water, I think, is where we meet, kind of like. And so I don't know, that might be a little corny, but I was just thinking about it as we were talking. And like, here, I'll put it to you this way: the people who founded Alcoholics Anonymous would have killed to have the networking systems that we have. They would have killed for it. And yep, that's all I got.
Yeah, I think it reminds me of, there's a lot of talk in the Christian church about the church being a body with many different parts. And that's one of the things that helped me, or that I came to appreciate being at this conference, was the relevance of each part, the relevance of the Discord. I don't really participate on Discord very much, but I think there's a relevant aspect of that for people that do. The relevance of Paul's videos. I don't watch all of Paul's videos. I don't have time to take in hour-long things. Even Pajot or Vervaeke, I've seen clips here and there, but that doesn't mean that because I don't use them, that doesn't mean they're not valuable. And then Van Donk's Estuary and the protocol, which I don't really use, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. But I learned that each is a valuable, different part of this body, so to speak.
Yeah, so it's all a bunch of different ways to participate in what's emanating out of this little corner, right? And again, I love Estuary. And the other thing is, which is like, it's very clear, and kudos to everyone. And I knew it'd be awesome. And these events are going to keep getting stronger and better. I really believe that, right? Because as you start moving around where people can be, you move around the country, some more people can get to certain places, like, because there are more people from online or whatever it is, or people who are meeting in estuaries that will come together. And like these events are going to be vitally important to put faces and name and share atmosphere. I want you to understand, I see these are spectacular things to happen. I'm not downgrading them, right? Because I think you're right. It's all part of the ecosystem. And I'll quit banging the table, but people want to denigrate online, and I'm just going to continue to point out we are an online community, and we would not exist without it. And we need to keep those channels of communications opened and
Lance,
respected.
Thank you for ordering down the online thought. It's important for sure.
Look, I'm Tayo. So
no, wait.
Oh yeah.
There you go. Hey, that goes really well.
So as we we're doing relevance realization. As we move down as we do more events, I would encourage people to put some, even if they're just local events where you are, right? It can't be completely dependent on big names. So that's the other thing. So encouraging local events, I think, is a good thing. And because these guys aren't always going to be alive. So
now I was thinking about that, because I
feel like one of these dudes can get hit by a train tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
And there are a lot of decent thinkers already. I mean, for example, I would find it interesting to see Grim on a live panel talking with some people. I mean, even Chad, I think it would be interesting to have you on a panel discussing how AA relates to all of this and some of the differences and similarities. So
Dr. Jim, we've got so many people in this little corner that are not your Viveki Vanderclay, that have got a wealth of wisdom.
And I also think even for the bigger events, like that's got the amount of talking that they all did, the big time speakers, had to be exhausting. So what if you had like them do maybe evening sessions or some of the bigger sessions, but then fill up some of the daytime stuff with the not big name people and have some of those.
I think that's the role that Anna Chino played. That's what the campsite was. The campsite was a place where you could have conversations with Chad, your Grim, your Mo. You've got some big name, maybe B, lower tier, not the top tier, like B tier, TLC mind to converse with. Like I got so much from Chad. Grizz is a flipping wizard, so you can all like
yeah.
He says words just so flippantly, like just so normally. Yeah, like that is such a great phrase you've just uttered, nonchalant. So yeah, a lot of when you were speaking more, I was thinking of Wireless, which is like a festival in the UK where you have a big stage for the A artists, and you've got a smaller stages where other artists can perform. Then you've got local stage for the local artists where the people that are literally in London can be there to perform. So yeah, I like that idea. That sounds good.
Even so, if you were to go to a gas station, your local gas station right now, and ask the person, have you ever heard of Jordan Peterson? I think the high likelihood that they would say who is probably 80%. They would be like, "What? Who?" And so it's the same thing. If I'm going to go to the gas station and say, "Hey, have you ever heard of a guy named Bill Wilson?" They'd be like, "What are you talking about?" Um, and so that being said, we're, that should give us an idea on one of our goals of things not to do and not to be too self-referential as far as um, importance in personalities. We love them and they are important, but they aren't everything. And so you got I would love to see DC Schindler or um, just
Ken
any
Lowry.
number, Ken Laurie, just any number of people who aren't yet, maybe even inviting, like almost being like a mandatory consideration to bring in somebody who isn't in the conversation to these different things. And like, so like big AA events, like I've been a part of making a lot of those happen. You'll have like a Friday night main speaker, a Saturday night main speaker, and a Sunday morning speaker, and then you'll have a bunch of panels throughout the day. Then you'll have like what they call an alcathon, which is basically an estuary meeting going like 24 hours a day, a room that you can go to where it's always happening.
Mm.
Things like this are just kind of really good things to consider as you make events. And the other thing, if you're going to make events, don't be intimidated by making the event. It's a very simple thing to do. It's not complicated. What the biggest thing is finding a crew of people who have experience in doing that and just pulling the trigger. Of course, it's going to cost some money, but you're going to get that back in your tickets, and it's not complicated.
Yeah, it was interesting what you said about the events, because if I'm looking at this just like as an event person, the event was pretty rough around the edges in terms of some of the things. But even with an event that was rough around the edges, was so powerful and impactful to so many people. And through, I'm sure once, Paul just released one of the videos, but I'm sure more will be released and it'll continue to impact more people. So yeah, there's no real need to be super professional.
We missed Teo because I was going to say, yeah, I mean, and like, listen, this is Paul and Pajot and stuff, them continuing to, a few times a year have, larger events make sense. But, with any community, like I was thinking with Teo, which is like, there are musicians, like there are people who are into music and creative spaces, like some people that come together and maybe they could invite some of their friends that are into those sorts of things. And some of these, it doesn't always have to be a huge event either. Like 15, 20 people getting together, sometimes some of those smaller events could be even, can be just as impactful. And there's so much talent, like the sorts of talents and the skill sets and the things that people are into, whether it be the writers clubs, or the music folks, or you've got all sorts of different folks in the way they want to talk about things. Like there are ways to do these smaller events around too, that all feed that thing, right?
So Graham asked his question. Pajot's closing thoughts made it sound like this would be his last corner event. Well, I spoke to Pajot Saturday night about the Israel event, and he was pretty interested in it. So maybe he doesn't consider that part of it. But I suspect, because he's friends with Paul and Vervaeke, so I suspect that if they're interested and he has the availability and other people are paying him for it.
Well, what I like about that, because I kind of felt the same thing, that I heard the same thing Grizz heard. And part of what I heard was, you guys are going to have to learn how to fly on your own.
Mm.
And I think that's very wise of him. He's not our guru, and whatever he can do to alleviate us of thinking that, I think he should do.
Mm-hmm. And he's also launching his own thing too.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, man. And so no, we should be we should not be reliant upon. That's why I'm saying this stuff this isn't reliant on personalities.
Yeah.
It's something far deeper. And you know, we're gonna have to figure out if that's the case or not. And part of that is gonna be learn how to fly. So
Well, and that's why people have to be okay with smaller gatherings, because PBK, Pajot, and Vervaeke are always going to draw more people. That's just that's a reality of life.
right.
But mega churches draw more people, but you know, I'm drawn to small church, right, or a smaller environment, right, and so all of it's good. And like you say, that like Mo, like you've seen it, we've all seen it. There are tons of really amazing people down here, percolating down here, you know, that have the capability to help gather people around and do some really interesting events.
Yeah, and I kind of think of it. I mean, it's helpful to have the church as, you know, I meet at my church every week. And before I was a pastor, I had a pastor that I listened to and whatnot. Every now and then, some people, and that's fun. It's very enjoyable. It's impactful. It's meaningful, but it's not something I'm going to do every week. And then every now and then, there's this big Christian conference. I think of like Promise Keepers in the '90s, you know, and to be in Soldier Field at the time with tens of thousands of other believers singing songs and whatnot, that's powerful. I'm not going to go to Promise Keepers every.
Right,
so it's like
right.
each one has its place.
Yeah. Well, and what I'm excited about is I know what's going to happen, because you know this is how God works. This is how information works. Is people? There are going to be a number of you who are there that will be impacted, and then creative ideas going to come out of that, or an inspiration to start or do something or whatever. I guarantee that this event is going to be a catalyst for some really cool things that are going to grow out of it for those of you that attended.
Yeah, and I hope that's. I mean, I talked to several estuary leaders that led that were just like super motivated to come back and really be on that. And I think that's really cool, because that's where it starts. That's where the embodiment starts to happen. We start to build community. Once people are involved in the estuary, there's go to church, you know, and then we can start getting people involved in that as well. And I think that when, you know, we've been talking about this whole organization thing that we've since named the Joyful Mother of Children Foundation, but that's really the goal, is to all the things that are happening to support that. Find creatives, like you mentioned, like there's musicians, there's writers, so okay, how can we provide a space even online and encourage them to meet one another and get together and do those things on their own?
Yeah, and then we can do, yeah, absolutely. Like I've got one of my very good friends. I kind of pastored with him for a little bit. He's got a really interesting story. Born with cystic fibrosis, has now on his double lung transplants, but he's known in the art space. Like he has credibility. He did street art and was, you know, kind of has Christian elements to that, but like he taught at the art institutes and stuff like that. He has a unique voice in that community that I could never have, right? Because he has credibility or whatever. And so he'd be a really interesting guy to introduce kind of into our and he goes around and gives lots of talks and stuff. It's very inspirational. He'd be an interesting guy to introduce like into those communities, but then also talk about the art, right? Mm-hmm. And using art for meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I mainly the videos that I've listened to in John Peugeot has been about the icon making and when he did movie reviews. So it was very art based. I haven't really got into a ton of his whole like symbolic world stuff, but I got into him through the arts. And apparently there are a lot of really good artists within this little corner. I'm still meeting people. Like I just met at the conference Karen Wang, who apparently is a really good artist and has her own channel, but that was my first time meeting her.
Hey, Grizz, you should start at 25,000 event and then, you know, move up if you need to.
It was great meeting Sevilla and Karen. That was awesome.
I didn't get to meet Sevilla. I met Karen, but every time I thought about being introduced to her by somebody, she wasn't around or I wasn't in proximity.
That's another thing I want to address really quickly because I got to get off here. I got to make some cuts. There's like this strangeness in meeting, not necessarily meeting people, but seeing them in person, seeing their body and their face and stuff for the first time is very, very like this weird inverted uncanny valley where like Jonathan Peugeot's head looks massive. Like it does, and he looks like a lion. I mean, it's like very, very strange. Like it's I don't know. And then you have to adjust to it after the fact, and then eventually everybody looks normal. But I don't know that these devices are doing something weird to us, just so you know, and they're going to continue to do something weird to us. So I got to make some cuts. I'm doing this bathroom, guys. Later. Thank you.
Later.
God bless.
I just wanted to jump in. I'm the apostle of the online virtual community, so I always have to say my piece. But I'm really excited. Grim, folks who are here, I'll drop off. Let's get some folks who are actually there and can share their thoughts on it.
I have been curious, and I have also been curious as to what some of those folks think should be next. I mean, we're definitely working towards planning this Israel conference next February, at the end of next February, but there's time in between. There's going to be time after. I'm curious, what the appetite is like for different things, and what other people, the pros and cons of the conference. Like, what were their experiences?
Yeah, it's one of the things I've been kicking around, and I threw this out in some voice chats or whatever. One of the things that I've been trying to figure out, which is 24/7 always having a voice chat going on, which kind of the way it was a bit for a few years on Bridges and Meaning, but and it doesn't have to be Bridges and Meaning. It could be some other Discord that's set up just for people who want to have those sorts of conversations, right? Is what are some ways to maybe think about to create some, we have the just chattings, but sometimes people don't want to share there are certain things I can't share online, but I'll share in a voice chat that can be impactful or whatever about my story. There are just some things that aren't for public consumption, might involve other people that don't want their business blared out on, the waves. But, I'd floated out some ideas of having some times where, hey, Mondays or Wednesdays, we're going to be hanging out on this server and we're going to be chatting about this kind of stuff. We'll be there, to keep a door open, because once people get into a rhythm and like if you provide a space and a consistency there, then you can provide a space for people that are here now, and hopefully they're there, but also the new people because new people are finding their way here every day,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen some examples of that. I feel like Jacob is doing a lot of that. Like he's got his Hebrew classes that he does online that people kind of attend regularly. But yeah, the public aspect of it, like it was interesting when I first started doing some of these live chats and people encouraging me to meet other people. I would just find them on Discord, and then we would set up a private video chat so I could get to know them and get their ideas. That's initially how I met Chad. And that was kind of cool that I met Catherine that way. And it's like, okay, we see these people, get to know them through this just chatting thing. But I mean, I think of it as like the cafe, right? This online cafe thing, people pop in and out. But I don't want it to be in this public cafe. Let's exchange information and we can go talk elsewhere, whether it be Discord, texting, something else.
Well, it's levels of intimacy, right? There's an intimacy that you can, and a vulnerability. I think it's like some people being willing to be vulnerable in public spaces are important because people need to see that, right? And this is their vehicle. They don't have access to that other space. But there are levels of intimacy that you can get in a private voice chat or in a private DM call on Discord or whatever whatever the tools might be, right?
Yeah.
There's just, again, like you talked about providing a number of different types of events with a number of different focuses with lots of different people and not always PVK or whatever. It's also just providing as many different types of entry points, because like if you look at a 12-step program, there's like a speaker meeting, which is what I would call like maybe the Sunday service, right? Where everyone shows up and not everyone participates. And then you have an AA meeting, which would be more like maybe a Bible study or a women's group or a men's group, a little bit smaller. Now you can share and you get a little more intimate. And then there gets to be sponsorship or discipleship, where it's that one-on-one, and that's where you can really like take your mask off and do those things. Like providing those levels to me are, I think you can see it works in the church. That's the way, like when people talk about it, like that's how 12-step works.
Yeah.
And then thinking about that here, like providing all the levels of keeping the communication lines open for folks, because I do think what we're doing is hopefully we're here to say, hey, I've been where you're at, or, you know, help them walk along a path to do some sense making or whatever. So then they go and plug into their spiritual home.
Yeah. And so certainly like with this organization or the foundation, the idea wouldn't be to provide these things, but to encourage the people that are already trying to provide those things. So like even coming to this conference, it was like, Van Donk is doing this thing with other people. How can I help? How can I help assist in that endeavor? And so as people come up with their own ideas, we want to be a resource. They go to, hey, I really want to do this event where I'm at, this maybe musician event or whatever. Okay, how can we help you? You know, they can tap into us in terms of networking, potential fundraising, things like that, to help all these mid and lower level and even maybe even grander level events come together. So I always think of it as just an assistant coming up underneath to help uplift those that are trying to do something. Here's some feedback from David. It's definitely too big to get intimate connection with most anyone, but it was more like a celebration coming together. Huh, that's interesting. Because I did get the sense with some people of that. Like I remember seeing a few people as I'm talking with somebody just kind of sitting off to the side, thinking, I'm sure that person wants to engage in a conversation, but can't quite do it. And I didn't always know what to do about that because I'm in the middle of a conversation with a different person.
Yeah. Grim was looking for the link. Why don't you put the link in and maybe some new people can join, and people don't need. Yeah, there we go. People don't need to hear from me, from the guy who wasn't at the event, but.
Yeah, I'll be curious. I would imagine once those videos get released, you're going to be watching some of them. Because there was a lot of, somebody commented here that we're talking about this little corner in this event, what actually happened and what was said at the event. There were actually some really interesting things that were said by all four of the speakers: Pajot, Vervaeke, Van Donk, and Vanderklay.
Yeah.
One of I thought the very interesting aspect was they got into talking about fire and the campfire, especially, right? Vervaeke kind of mentioned the idea of what we're doing right now is similar to the campfire. When you're sitting around a campfire, your faces are illuminated, but you don't really see much of the body. I thought that, okay, yeah, that's interesting. And there's kind of almost this felt intimacy there. But then he talked about fire, or Pajot talked about fire being this thing that compels. It calls you towards it, but you can't grasp it. And he related that even to God. God is something that compels you towards him, but you can't grasp. And so me and Tayo and Chad were joking about
one suggestion I had, which I thought would have been interesting, because I know I've attended a lot of events where they have live events, but they'll also stream it live. So, and if you didn't want to do that publicly, let's say you would have set it up to where maybe it was in a Discord server or whatever, if you wanted to keep it just in-house or whatever.
Yeah.
But it would have been an interesting way for people who weren't there. Of course, they're not going to get what the people in person get, because the camp, like hanging out with Grim at the campsite, is the magic of the weekend. but it would have been cool for folks, because then everyone would have had, at least from the public talks, the collective distributed cognition would have been there together, whatever. That just would have been a suggestion. I think that maybe in the future they could think about live streaming.
How's it going, Grim? How you feeling today?
I'm sending this to stream to my channel, so I'm kind of distracted for a bit.
Well, I'll let you go. You've got the star of Chino here.
No. Keep covering until I get this running on my channel.
Yeah, we got to cover him up so he can handle his technical difficulties.
It was really packed, because it was great, because Friday everybody was talking about the campfire, and then like 30 of us went and experienced it directly. You know, that was I mean, for me, the camp was better than most of the event. Like, just it was like a rolling estuary meeting, kind of. Let's see, that should be all right. Theoretically, I'll be live on my channel now too, also.
Cool.
So, but yeah, that was. But like, yeah, for me, I don't know. I don't know if it's my personality or what, but I don't. People would get at the campsite anyway. They'd get into conversations with people, and like they would last probably between 40 minutes to 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And like, in the way I am is like, I would bounce just to make sure like what was going on here, what was going on there. Everybody, I felt like that was my thing, was like to make sure everybody was. I couldn't get into one of those really, maybe one or two, but
yeah, I mean, I think you played that role well. Like everybody has talked that it was at the campfire has talked about that as one of the main, most pivotal aspects of the event.
It made it rough though, because like we were up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning each night, and so like people were falling asleep during the actual thing, and then like trying to make Ricky's meditation on Sunday morning was like, seven guys.
Yeah, I gave up on that. I was actually at a conversation in the middle of a conversation on Saturday and fell asleep in the chair in the middle of the conversation.
Bobby, while you were talking, right?
I wasn't talking. Somebody else was talking. And then I woke up and they're all laughing at me. But yeah, no, but it was one of those where I value that time at the campfire. Like I wasn't willing to just, I want to be prepared for tomorrow. I'm just going to turn in. It was like, no, this is important. What's happening here?
Yeah. For me, it was, that's where, like, cause there's some bonding you can do at the event. Like in those, especially in the estuary groups or whatever, and on the smoke breaks. But
yeah,
but like the campfire is like, it felt like, and also in paintball, it felt like we were really getting to know each other in a way that the people who didn't come to the campfire weren't. I don't know. Maybe the hotel people could have or did do something similar, because they were like the same. Like they had 30 rooms at the hotel that could have been grouped up like that, right?
Yeah.
On a personal note, I wanted to thank you, Grizz, for helping me out the whole time. It was. I feel like, I don't know. In a weird way, it was like some kind of strange long lost friend. So I know that sounds corny, but I did very much enjoy the conversations that I had with you. So I just wanted to tell you that before I got to put some insulation in the wall back here and cover it up.
Yeah, you got to make up all that money you helped me out with, man. Like, bought a full tank of gas for me running people around and stuff. So, I don't know. For a lot of me, it's like there's people that shine. It's like the 6th season of Lost almost. It's like this is a party member. Like this is a person I was supposed to meet. This is. And then you're one of those for me, Chad. And there's nothing against the people who aren't.
Right.
No,
because you and I we're playing a similar role, I think, where, there's not a whole lot of time to sit and have long conversations. It's a lot of stop and go, say how you doing, and maybe find the person that's just sitting there, maybe spark up something, and then zoom you're off, and then that's just how it goes. But that's like for me, even like in AA, that's always been my secret. I do service work so you don't have to talk to me. It's just a great little thing to do. And then I don't have to feel like a piece of shit, and I can just get involved. What's up, Michael? There's our communist friend.
I felt bad by how many people I didn't recognize at first, and he was one of them.
Right.
You look different in person.
To be fair,
I got to roll, guys.
Peace, Chad.
So what are your thoughts, Mike? You were at the camp. Am I blowing it up, or was it as awesome as I'm making it?
No, well, okay. So there was body forming there, right? The question is, what's the nature of that body? And that's the larger question overall, right? It's its bodies, larger body. What is it doing? What's it aimed towards? Right? What kind of thing on the invisible, right, is it oriented towards, and where does it fall on some kind of hierarchy?
Are you saying that like everybody at the campfire was a frog face and Michael Levin had stirred them up, but it was naturally going back into the shape of it was meant to?
Look, I'm definitely saying that there was a bunch of friends there.
Yes.
Yes.
I definitely felt that way. Like I was talking with Chad and Tayo, it's that, there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong. And so much not only didn't go wrong, but went right. It felt deep. It felt fulfilling. Like I have no regrets about being there, and not having stayed in a hotel. Like I am forever grateful that I didn't make it. It was awesome.
So I was thinking a lot about my Occupy Wall Street days and the tents and the encampments and the seminars and the general assemblies and our breakout groups in spokeswheels models. I mean, I wouldn't call it PTSD, but I was having something.
But in those flashbacks, sorry, are they doing anything we should incorporate? Like, is there something you from there that they were doing that would be beneficial for us to also? Okay,
so the critiques that I would have about the warnings I would have might really only apply to leftist spaces, right? Because what happens in those groups, it's not like we're not susceptible to this, but the biggest danger on what broke any kind of cohesion was suspicion, right? And so these people suspect these people of being infiltrators. And the crazy thing is, there are infiltrators. That's the problem, right? But the suspicion itself about various kinds of infiltrators. I mean, this was the conversation with Jacob a few weeks ago about the one lady who, right, is like flagging things and maybe like cause some trouble on your channel, Grizz.
What? Do we have a suspect for who's reporting me?
Yeah. There, at least that was the impression that I got from those conversations with whoever was involved. Is like here's somebody wreaking havoc who is hearing things that triggers them and challenges their narrative, and then they go, okay, well, I'll just report the crap out of this, and then force, authorities' hands to move, right? So it's this weird balancing act where we're trying to have body without suspicion, right? But that there are little bits of corruption within that. Now, having become very attached to the Orthodox Church, and like I'm all bought in, like I put all my chips there, right? And having grown up pretty Christian, I've now started to see the reason why some of that pattern matters as much as it does, because it's like if you can be in a way that is full of grace, full of forgiveness, full of, like, completely oriented towards the good, then all of these other lower bodies, they can thrash and spit and go crazy and try to throw you in the fire and try to, they go bananas. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? Like the more that they resist the good, the more the good shines.
Yeah, it's like the matter of like, it's kind of like when I was up on stage with Jonathan Pajot, and he's talking about how the holy fool legitimizes the thing he's making fun of by giving it attention. it's sort of the same with the hostile, right? It's like the Gandhi thing where first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
Mhm.
So like we've passed the if there's people there to disrupt, then we've passed the they ignore you stage with that. Somebody asked if should we be doing the human microphone from Occupy? Is that a feature we're missing out on?
Do
That
you guys
was
know what that is?
CW, who I'm still upset didn't come.
Yes, CW should have been there. At least CW should have rented a penthouse at a hotel and had people come by and see him on an individual or group basis at least.
I would have come by.
That's what I want to know. I want to know all the people who have been in Jacob's apartment and like what they have in common, why he selected them, and what he's planning to do with them. Because he's clearly forming some kind of paramilitary group over there. People
That's
who
someone
can't
that
follow
looks
the
at uniform.
instructions of flying into Ontario. I think, and he's forming them into some sort of thing. I don't know. Is it to do with the foundation, or was it some a personal ploy of his? You guys think?
Well, I mean, we did thought about having a military aspect of the foundation, just in case.
Well, if
That
the
has-
foundation backs paintball for Jesus, it's handled, right?
Well, we were kind of scouting out at the paintball, like who would be good for this, like who's having the most accurate shots and whatnot, who got hit the least. But we're still collecting the data.
Everybody still got your bruises? I checked them, but they're still there. They're still there, but some people had blood. I don't know if they like pumped it up to 4 pressure instead of 3, but there were some moderately inconvenient wounds.
Yeah, that's why I didn't do the paintballing. I went paintballing once in my life, and I sucked at it, and it hurt a lot.
Dolly, it's not okay that you didn't come from South Africa. I mean, Teo and Antonio got to steal the farthest away person, and it would have been better if it was you, I think.
Wasn't there supposed to be a contingent coming from Europe?
That they were there. That was Teo and Antonio.
I thought there were more that were supposed to be coming that didn't end up showing up.
Those are the ones I was aware of.
Oh, okay.
There was only a little blood, right, man? It's just a little bit.
Nobody died.
I got to start going through all the road footage and stuff. I don't know how much of the event footage I actually took, but
Did anybody get footage of the Signs and Wonders at the dinner?
I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about it. That was fabulous. I can't believe I didn't anticipate it, but should have, that Van Donk would ask us to actually perform at the event. It was my intent that the Signs and Wonders performance was just going to be an Anna Chino thing, but
that was a blast. Like it was so fun to sing "Leaning on His Everlasting Arms" with Raj.
Right. I was the way what was it? Chad got everybody into Sunshine.
Oh yeah,
Made like
awesome.
that
drum was amazing.
It made the Hobo's Lullaby feel weak to me at the end, but like the whole room, this whole convention. If you guys, for those of you who weren't there, Signs and Wonders were performed. Wait! There was a performance of Signs and Wonders at the Estuary Chino event, and everybody at dinner on Saturday night was a witness to that.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it's very very tricky, but if you use the words just right, you can say there was you can give people the impression.
I've had Hobo's Lullaby in my head all weekend. I had never heard it before, Anna Chino.
I had never heard Only a Hobo, and like we only ever did it the first rehearsal,
Yeah.
but like that one, only a hobo and one more is gone. It keeps driving into my head like a spike. Oh, I'll be back in a second.
All right.
If I can. No. Yes.
Any other feedback from the event, Mike?
So I've deeply embedded myself in pretty Christian spaces, and including very ecumenical spaces, and I think that there's just about anywhere you go within any of those communities, there is some degree of familiarity with what's going on with Peterson, right? And then if they know anything more than that, then maybe they also have a sense of Peugeot, right? But definitely the Peterson piece. And so maybe the question becomes about Peterson, because whatever the heck we're doing here, it's certainly tied to that, whether we like it or not, right? So the question becomes, and I think this is being asked in every single Christian tradition, right, whether it's Orthodoxy or the Reformed folks or whatever. Again, I'm really only speaking from that lens. What is that? Is it an idol, right? Or is it a renewal, right? And what I see is I see people, okay, whether it's Peterson, Peugeot, Vanderclay, whatever, that are just like pushing people into church, like stop listening to us, go to church, right? And yeah, there's a contingent of people, and including people maybe listening to this stream right now, they're like, I'm not sure how I feel about it, and isn't this tent bigger than these things? Well, yeah, but again, right now I'm just going to speak from a Christian lens, right? There's a fight going on, right? And that fight is maybe more about a bondage to material rationality that has made its way up even through our spiritual institutions, right? Through every tradition within Christianity. And so Peterson represents, in my opinion, more of a renewal than an idol, right? Where it's like, oh, let me shake you out of your sleep here. Let me shake you out of your, let me awaken you to powers and principalities, right? And so I think that what this little corner is, and what's going on, has a lot to do with a fool-like critique on the larger spiritual institutions, but really specifically Christianity, that is waking it out of its slumber, right, and resurrecting Christ from the dead, right, and that is, in a very serious sense, the fight that has Vervaeke seemingly full of anxiety at night, right? So I don't know. I'm using a lot of Christianese to talk about this.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's a few things that stick out to me as you're talking. One is it reminds me of, the Great Awakenings, right? Revivals that there was already Christian churches everywhere. Some of them doing good things, some of them not. And here comes Peterson, amongst others, that are generating a lot more interest, and even ecumenical interest. I mean, that was one of the cool things, I'm a Protestant minister, talking to the Ortho Bros, and talking to Father Eric, and having a conversation. Like, it's not an argument. We're on the same page on so many things, and really trying to point people towards church, towards Christ, the body. And that was really cool. But it also reminded me of, in the New Testament, Paul talking about those saying, I follow Apollos. I'm a disciple of John the Baptist. John the Baptist is pointing towards Christ, but yet some people are still following him. So there will always be those that just idolize or follow Peterson. But I wouldn't say that's the main title of or the role that has played or is playing. Or any of these people. I'm sure there are some people that still idolize Vervaeke or Peugeot or even Vanderclay, but that's not the main role that they're playing. I think it is something that is pointing to the highest.
Yeah, and I think that they try to
Thank you.
speak on that pretty intentionally.
I can't jump. I can't highlight comments over here on this rando's place. It's terrible. But I did go get the savings throw dice because nobody got any for a long time. So, finally, the first post Chino savings throws. You get to choose between survival, social, wisdom, or heart as the basis for your savings throw. If you've been chatting in the hive mind, you get a +2. If you leave a comment, it's a +4. And if you wore a lanyard last weekend, that's a fat +7. So remember, survival, social, wisdom, or heart, choose.
What if we're still wearing our lanyards?
It's the same bonus, +7. Survivalists, 17. Socialists, bonuses don't help. That's a nat 1. Sorry, Mike. Lovers of wisdom, that's a 9. And you can't tell because the reflection off the die. And the heart, folks, 4 chambers times each other, 16. Indigo kids, deuce. So Weeks CW reported that there was video of Signs and Wonders.
Is he talking about the campfire one that you posted?
Oh, it might be. That's true. If you haven't followed me on the Twitter, and you're on the Twitter, there are campfire videos I've retweeted. I think a lot of them came from Kojo, if you're following him. So those are available. I'm going to be like gathering what I have into something coherent and putting it on the channel itself. But there are pieces and stuff floating around all over the place.
Somebody's invincible.
That's good. That's always good. Take that, ancient spirits of evil.
Oh yeah, I'll highlight that. There you go.
The video was on the Discord at the venue. Weeks, can you just come on and talk like a normal person? Because the way you speak in text is really hard to parse. Raj!
It's hard.
By Jove.
Hey guys.
So you remember that really cool guy I met during that one special part? Raj? I don't remember his name, so remind me of that.
I think I know who you're referring. Yeah.
Yeah.
At the campfire, right?
I was amazed by how many rocket scientists were at paintball. That was ridiculous. Like that was one of the biggest things for the event for me is like I'm used to people who have lived on the internet most of their lives, not ones that have made successful careers and stuff. So meeting those kind of people is always fun and exciting. Hey Mo, can you press that one that puts us in the like Michael mode and Chad mode?
I just wanted to say hi, Raj. Bye, Raj.
Hi, Chad.
Oh, is it like the person that's talking?
How's it going, man?
It's right below the main screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that, but not that one. That one looks good. Thank you.
So Andrew, I want to say something
right?
about.
I thought I saw you.
Yeah, I was there on Thursday. I couldn't make it any other day, so.
Yeah, so Andrew greeted the Sacramento crew when we got to the pizza place, and he was already in it. He was like, "Go talk to people, meet people," and he was already feeling the kind of energy that was in the air. And we didn't really understand it when we first got. Like, yeah, we'll just sit down and have a slice first, Andrew.
Yeah, I met Raj and Michael there, so that was pretty great. Thought I saw you too, Grim, but was busy talking to a bunch of randos.
Yeah, I was like, I saw you and assumed I'd see you again, and then noticed that I did not. Yeah. I'll say, like, if we're just gonna review what happened, one of the things that other than people who have made successful lives for themselves, the other group of people that I what do you call it? It's like foreigners, right? Where they're coming from is foreign to me. is because of my irreverence. And like there was a lovely lady in our first estuary group who was, it's like the same way it is for Peterson with you guys. It's like the people who are coming to see the speakers, right? And not because they feel like they're part of the corner, but just because they're actually just following that particular speaker, and their lives have been so impacted by it, like Pajot in this case. Like, it's like, because like I get it's like I feel like there's eggshells because of their reverence for the person and my irreverence. I have to be very careful in that situation. What kind of people did you enjoy meeting that you don't normally associate with, guys?
The one thing that
who's
the one
foreign?
thing that who I guess are foreign to me, or actually people like Andrew, the people who are on whatever this path or journey is, who are young, 18-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, maybe even the 23. Like that was very surprising to me and refreshing, and filled me with hope. And it was very cool to see, because when I was that age, that was certainly not what I was thinking about.
Well, when we were that age, we had just beaten Russia, right? Like the tectonic substrate that we're growing up in has shifted so much, and the cross-generational divides, or the lack of cross-cultural ratcheting, especially among ages, it feels like we're getting divided even more and more into, and that's why this is, like you said, this event, they're foreign to us, because being the age difference is now kind of so. Yeah.
Well, it's like in my local religious community, there are children around, there are some teenagers, and then there's people who are, 30 plus, but 35 plus, I would say, but this age between maybe 18 to 29 or 30 is missing there.
Yeah, you know what? That's something that occurred to me lately. Is I don't interact with a whole lot of people anymore in that age group. When I was maybe 10 years ago, I was a teacher and I would interact with former students in that age group a lot. But since I left teaching, yeah, I interact with teenagers in my church, kids, and people above 30. But 18 to 29, I don't know where to find them.
Right.
Where is the target demographic, and why are we targeting them? Stay tuned. All right, Andrew, say something. I feel like I'm walking on people.
I got to meet a bunch of old folks, right? They've all got beards and whatnot. Certainly a new aesthetic. Yep. Met a couple of lurkers, right? People who I don't join but keep up with all this stuff, and it's always kind of like a jarring experience when that happens. Just because, like,
what do you mean by lurkers?
Like they stay in the chat and then they don't come on, or
yeah. So you got your first taste of minor celebrity then, maybe, huh? Is that what you mean?
I only met one person like that, but hey, but yeah, it was kind of jarring. Yeah, I also met another convert copt, which was like really cool, because I don't know, you really don't see anyone like that. The Orthodox Church is still very much a ethnic subculture type thing, So
I didn't know they existed until last year. Go ahead.
I don't think any of you guys went to the I guess you could say the tour at the Orthodox Church, did you?
I didn't, but if I had seen a picture of that dude, I so would have, because he reminds me of like this actor I love so much.
So one of the things he had told us was that church is growing very fast. That they have a pretty rigorous process before they'll baptize somebody. But they used to have a lot of what he would consider to be a year where a lot of people were showing up, was maybe 20 or 30 people who wanted to get involved in the process. So now it's for the last couple of years, it's been 100 people are showing up a year and wanting to get involved. Maybe 50 of them will make it to baptism, but like that church was packed when we got there.
That's mad.
Well, it's like I literally didn't know
Hey, Sandy.
that there was Sandy. There was any difference between Orthodox. Like there was an Orthodox. I didn't know. You know, I thought Catholic was as hardcore as Christianity got. Really, that's the
Yeah.
thing. And like that there exists a Christianity that's not Ned Flanders,
Right.
and that the word of that is now getting out. I don't we can't give Pajot all the credit for that. What else do you think is spawning ortho bros? Just the what's the opposite of woke, and that's the one that shows up when people start looking for that.
I think it might be the uniqueness of it, right? That everybody knows of Catholicism or can point to a Catholic church around. We think we're familiar with it, even if we're not. But ortho is like so
out there,
other that it's like,
it's exotic.
I'm a conformist. I don't want to be regular Protestant. I don't want to be Catholic. Who I can be. And I met two kinds there. I met some really cool ortho bros that were like, we had some really great conversations, and I did meet a couple of ones that I'm like, yeah, you're just kind of being arrogant, like anti-conformist type.
Yeah. Sandy, are you still at the campsite?
No. I'm sitting at Tim Hortons in my car. I'm out running some errands with my son at the moment. I got it. And Andrew, not all of the old people that you met have beards. Oh dear. If you want to learn to talk to young people, go work at a massive store for a while that employs a ton of It's amazing how many people. That's what you're trying to avoid?
Those stores.
Yeah, this is what you do when you're truly old. You look for that. You go back and you go, hey, I think I'll get a job at.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Sandy is an estuary leader and conducted the estuary that got me in it, where I met that lady that came from the foreign perspective. What are your thoughts about the event there, Sandy?
I
mean, this was like a hero's journey, right? You were called to this adventure because this is not
actually told Ted at the campsite that because we were talking about John Van Donk and his walking the Camino. I'd been thinking about that because a friend of mine went with somebody, and that's why I said to Ted, I said I think this is my Camino. This really hit me because of the things you bring stuff on your journey wherever your journey is. So what I think about this, I brought a whole lot of questions with me about people I'd been meeting the last 6 months, just hanging out with people in Discords and whatnot. And I brought a whole lot of life's journey with me. Yeah, sorry, Grizz, I kind of cut you off there. And I got it this morning and I was already chatting with people saying my heart is so full. It's going to take me a good week or more to process just all the stuff I got out of it. And so much of it is what I kept saying I was going for. Like, I get the impression a lot of people showed up with the questions they had from watching videos. I showed up with the questions I have from all of the people in my life and the people I'd met. And my goal was just to connect with the people and actually get to do that face-to-face time where you can adjust as you go kind of conversations, Yeah, and I'm so glad you were in my estuary group, Chris. That was good. You were one of a couple of people keeping me on track. So thank you.
Now, another angle I would like to have hear from you on is like one of the questions earlier from the Hive Mind, Stephanie, was how many attendees were there and how did you describe the overall composition of the subgroups? But of that, like from an Anna Chino 23 perspective, you were one of the brave females to go camping with up to 28 other dudes. And So how do you feel about the camping and your choice to join that?
Really positive. I was so glad Emma was going because I knew it would be really weird if I showed up as the only person, like the only female in the group. But it was definitely the way I wanted to go for all of those community kind of things that happen around camping. One of the motivations was I've been to a lot of conferences in the past where you go, you've got a hotel room. So you go, you listen to the events, you sit over supper, you're kind of running to, keep up with the event and touch base with as many people as you can. But downtime's pretty much in your room. And so for me, when you offered the option of the camping, I'm like, that's downtime around a fire pit and sitting at picnic tables and just generally walking around outdoors. All of the things I miss in life already, sort of going from home to store to home to store. I'm inside so much time, and there is something about actually engaging people, just in the around, in the natural realm of things, not that hotel staying hasn't been good in the past, but there's a different dynamic to it. Or do you want to know if it was like overload to hang out with all the guys? No.
No, well, I think the main concern was that I'd want conveyed is how safe you felt.
Oh yeah, I mean,
because that's the concern when you say like is the lady gonna go there? Will she be safe if she does?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt more protective care than I have in ages, actually. And funnily enough, too, a lot of it from the dynamic, the grouping that you were talking about being those younger people, sort of anywhere from the youngest, well, not the youngest, I had a kid in my story group, not that young, but, the youngest conference attendees right up to, say, the 30 group. There's a lot of care and support that I received from them as well as older people. And it was really fun to just sit and listen to the thoughts. I felt this great area of respect. It was like, people asking my opinion, young people asking, how did you relate to this and this and this I was watching? I didn't feel left out. I sat quiet. I like to sit quiet and listen to people talking, campfire and stuff like that. I could sit back as far as I wanted, or I could participate if I wanted. For me, that was an ideal dynamic. And very safe, yes. Especially as I started out by saying, hey, I've got neck and shoulder damage and I really want to camp. And I got the loan of a sleeping bag, and you had a mattress thing I could borrow. And yeah, no, it was great. Safe on all levels.
Yeah, the mattress thing that drew you in the bottom on the 10th floor.
Yeah, the one that pitched me out in the middle of the night, but that was nice. I slept up against it.
I do want to also disclaim while we're upselling the campfire experience, there was once the scouts arrived on Friday night, it wasn't long before all of the toilets had flooded and then were no longer of access to us. So we did have to endure additional hardships as we went along, but we
got an additional consolation. We got to see Girl Scouts putting American flags to rest.
That was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Paul mentioned having the hot tub at the hotel. I thought that might be a great idea for the campsite next time, is to bring a hot tub with us.
Yeah, who's got a portable hot tub?
We'll be camping at the hot springs. So find us some hot springs so we have a place to camp, and then we'll find the nearest venue. Talk people can talk.
That would be awesome.
I have while we're selling the campfire, I have the 3-minute video that I got them to run at the end of the conference on the big screens. And I'd like to set up part of this because like this is my story of Anna Chino, I guess. So it's best to get it out. I'm calling this video Peak Anna Chino because of the moment that happened. And it's very complicated the way this works out. But so I come back and I find that the Kalepa cannot get into his car. And this is a concern because that's basically his house. and the guys are all tearing this thing apart. And so eventually that comes eventually that comes down to Chad calling in the angels of AAA, and to meet the AAA person at the gate, circumstances are such that I end up taking Chad down to wait for that guy at the gate. And that's where like the peak conversation for me happened, was between me and Chad there. And then we come back to there. And then now it turns out that the reason he couldn't get into his video had nothing to do with the key fob, and was in fact because the car battery was dead. And so when he pressed the key fob, there was no energy to unlock the doors. And that means also with the dead battery, it's rare that the engine would start. Like it would be some kind of miracle that the engine would start. And so after that conversation with Chad, we get up there, and then and then this happens. And desktop. I hadn't loaded it yet, guys. And a Chino. No, not that one. Son of a.
Should we play the waiting music?
Yes. Oh, it uses a unique codec my browser doesn't support. Never mind. False. Not running it.
Is this like on-ramp stuff, Grim?
What do you mean?
Like on-ramp, like explaining this little corner stuff?
No. What the video is I went down and I sat at the campfire, and like everybody was already in whatever they were in. And then I just took out my phone and started recording it. And then I handed it. And the phone makes a round all the way around the campfire. And then I get up and I go to check out the people that like didn't fit around the campfire and were formed in other groups. I check in on all of them. And then like right as I turn the camera to Kalepa's rig, he starts the engine. And so it was just that when I get the video out, guys, it'll be called Pecan and Chino. The sound's not great though.
I gotta bounce to a meeting here in just a second, but before I do, I wanted to answer something that Grim was pointing out and try to tie a couple of things together, at least from the way that I see it. It's like this grappling with this weird ancient Christian tradition-y thing, whatever this is, because there's a lot of this going. Everything from Peterson's work, what he's pointing at. I mean, Peterson, in a lot of ways, what does he do? He talks to people and then he like points at Peugeot. He's like, listen to this guy, right? It's weird. Listen to this guy. And you hear this theme all over the conference, grappling with things that this guy is bringing. Now, I immersed myself in these communities that he came from, right? Like really threw myself into the church. And I think that it's no coincidence that Andrew and Jacob and everyone spending time with like Father Stephen DeYoung's work, right? And so this is also in some sense what Paul's pointing out with a larger spread of understanding the West and history and these things breaking in the Gutenberg press. This is all a story grappling with a fracturing, right? And it's like the end result of that fracturing and Western liberalism. This is what people like Curtis Yarvin are grappling with, or those that are having these larger conversations about liberalism and the West and post-Enlightenment. Where does this land us? And rational materialism, all that. This orthodoxy thing that's landed in America, right? The only reason it landed here, largely speaking, was a result of a huge shakeup, right? 120 years ago, where a lot of these communities had to be refugees and leave, right? Because they're slow rolling. They don't evangelize the same way, right? And so here they are, bombs literally going off. These communities are fleeing. Like they come from Greece, they end up in Florida. There's like this Tarpon Springs community that built out there. Got Wichita, Kansas. That's what Richard Rowland tries to point everybody out in this Eighth Day Institute and Eighth Day Books. It's a Lebanese community. And so here's these little hubs, right? Little Russian hubs, little Lebanese hubs. There's all these little things. And they don't evangelize, but they grow. Right. And it's the same reason that you're seeing the statistics on oh, look at all these denominations that are struggling, right, in this end of modernity thing. But it's weird, this Orthodox thing, that their numbers are growing. It's the same reason that there's a write-up in the Wall Street Journal 5 days ago talking about orthodoxy and it growing in America. And it's still just a blip on the radar, don't get me wrong, but we're playing out a story that's going to go over hundreds of years. And make no mistake, this community is playing a serious part of grappling with that old tradition. I got to go to a meeting. Thank you all so much.
That was great. Thanks,
Good
Mike.
seeing you, man. Yep. Yeah, I think there's a reason why this whole thing is happening in America. You know?
I'm good.
Rick says it was weird and sus that nobody took a picture of him, but I want to say it was out of reverent deference that no one took a picture of you, Rick. And I think some people probably did.
Who's Rick?
Rick is Paul's assistant that doesn't exist.
Okay.
The one that who showed up and.
I literally had people come up to me asking if Rick was there, and having me point them to Rick. I was like, yeah, that's Rick right there. Multiple people had to confirm his existence.
On my return trip to airport, Phil was saying that Paul's son was there, and I'm like, was there?
Yeah, I did not. I lost it. I should have made the effort to meet Jared, and I don't think I did.
Yeah, I think I had an experience with Rick, but I might have been hallucinating.
Rick and Jared both came to the campfire.
So he was there, but I didn't recognize him as him. Okay.
Yeah, they both came. They were part of the whole caravan.
He revealed himself at the campsite.
Yeah.
Yes, Rick, I did say you look like you're always up to something, and you do, and you are. It's just I can see it. It shines. My Salience landscaper shows me the shine of it instantly, like your eyes sparkle with it. The up to something.
This is not a bad thing. Just saying.
So one thing I'm curious, I want to hear you guys' experience about post-conference, because as Ray, I don't know if any of you guys met Ray, but Ray's another local Sacramento estuary guy. And as we were driving back, we stopped in this no place. It was all that existed there was gas stations and fast food chains, and we got a couple of Subway sandwiches. And I was very struck by the interaction that I had had with the employees at Subway Sandwich. And
what? Whoa! You were very struck by the interaction you had with the Subway employees?
Yeah.
We're just supposed to swallow that? What the heck?
Well, let me explain, Chris.
Listen to you regularly, Chris. I mean,
after this whole weekend, it really put into sharp relief Vervaeke's warning about losing our humanity. And I kept thinking about that in terms of, oh, we're gonna upload ourselves into the singularity, or we're gonna become cyborgs, this kind of thing. But it wasn't a suburb. It was a rest stop kind of area, almost like a plaza on the East Coast. But yeah, I was really struck by it put losing our humanity into a different kind of light for me, where these people were just making these sandwiches. I tried to engage them a little bit of small talk, like, hey, what time are you guys going to close? Ray even said to them, oh, I'm paying for his sandwich too. He was being very generous to me. And they were just like, they didn't hear any of that. They didn't engage with any of that. She went up to the register afterwards and was like, looking at Ray, like, why are you still standing here? You already paid for your meal. He's like, no, I told you I was going to pay for his sandwich too. And this kind of inability, or there's not an inability, I can't say that, but this wall between us as human beings. And after connecting with people and being able to talk to pretty much anyone and getting into these crazy conversations with people almost immediately. I know that that's the rarity, and that's what's not the norm. But then going and even just trying to get a smile out of these people felt difficult.
I have a question back for you, Raj, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe two. I'll start with the first one because you might have somebody might have an answer. I was listening to I was also doing pre-conference listening, and I have no clue whether it was something I heard through checking out Vervaeke or Pajot. I'm pretty sure it was one of the two of them talking about something that really relates to that. And I'm going to go back through my history, see if I can find it. Somebody, whoever it was talking about the value of people in that context. They were talking, and it might have been Pajot, because it could have been like the conversation at the church tour on Sunday, where he was speaking about icons and their use in communicating things to non-readers or things, or the way that back in the day Shakespeare would speak on 3 or 4 different levels. I don't even get it, but my ex loves Shakespeare. That place where you have different ways of communicating at different levels, and if you lose the ground level, we're in trouble. That's kind of a general question I've been thinking about since wherever I saw that. The other is time of day, reality, the wall between them and I'll say them and you, because it's not a them and me. I still work retail. I spent the decades my kids were in their primary grades working at McDonald's. And there is, no matter where you work, on the bottom tier of life and income, there is this sense of being a cog in the wheel. You may be, I literally, where I work with people who are teachers and need a second income because of divorce, because they need to pay for X, Y, and Z extras for their kids who are going off to university. I work with at least 2 people who have run their own business and are now doing this, and 1 person who is earning 6 figures in a hospitality job area, who just wanted to slow down. And sometimes, oops, are you guys still there? Am I here?
Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes the wall is the first thing I described, and sometimes the wall is more that cog in the wheel thing where everything is timed. If you go up and have a conversation with somebody at a fast food outlet, I remember we had the weirdest thing when I worked at McDonald's. It wasn't set up like a proper drive-through. It included these, big belt over through the ceiling, down through, like, it was trying to pretend it was in a very old one, and we would have to serve everything in 4 minutes and under. And
see that timer ticking.
Oh yeah, you are not allowed to actually engage people off script that much.
Right. That's like, that's what I wouldn't say. How can I say it? That's what I was feeling when I was thinking with John's words echoing in my mind about losing our humanity. And I was also thinking, I was able to go up to any stranger and really ask them at the conference and say, so what brought you here? And it was an exciting, exhilarating story, usually with, some kind of pain, some kind of happiness. But I was imagining if I had asked these people, so what brought you here? That's not a story they would want to tell me. Also just because that wall is there. I know it sounds like, yeah, you can't have these conversations with strangers all the time, but
that's the NPC. That's your NPCing. NPC is a verb. Like,
right.
I have to go be an NPC at Subway so I can go do my internet life.
Right.
And that's what it was. That's where I'm coming from, into the corner. Is like, I did that early. I did that starting in 95.
Okay.
So I know where that's what this turns into.
Yeah.
but it's like us. Like, there's nothing that was going on in this town that could touch that, because the me that exists is now primarily exists underwater through the screen. Like, I dive into the screen, and that's where I get to be the me that doesn't have to NPC, that doesn't have like manager. It's so, I don't know that it's losing our humanity, but it's definitely that our humanity seems to be being pushed online, whether that's just because a natural result of information, the means of production or whatever, the technology facilitating it's so much cheaper. Like, how much did it cost us all to go versus this is instant and free and simulacra of.
So then there's a sense that what the corporations are paying you for is your ability to
turn into a machine.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
shape yourself
necessary-
into a cog.
I
And
don't think it's
that's
necessarily a
the
result of
basis
those
of reward.
corporations, though, because I see the same principle playing out at like parties. Like everybody goes to a party with, like you go to Subway to buy a sandwich. They go to a party to get trashed or to hook up, or there is something they're going there for.
To run an algorithm.
Yeah, and if you bring something new, like a conversation, like I remember being at a party. We got there like 11 o'clock. At the time, I was a sex ed teacher, and most of my friends that came with me left because it wasn't their scene. And I started a conversation with this guy. It was pretty intoxicated already. He asked me what I did for a living. So we started talking about sex education and sexuality and all these things. After about 2 hours, we had a circle, and we were all talking about different ideas regarding sexuality. Anyone who had been buzzed or drunk was already starting to sober up. And it's like 2 a.m, and we're having this really in-depth conversation. That's not what any of them were going to that party for.
Right.
And it ended up being this really weird thing. But I find the principle plays itself out not just in corporations and where we work, but it's also really come into the social life. We go to different friends' houses for certain things and not to experience genuine humanity.
Yeah.
You grab that afterglow for me, Mo?
That afterglow?
Yes. Can you grab it for me?
I can't grasp things.
It's in the chat.
Oh. Let me see. I have to find it.
It's the last one. It's the.
There we go.
Yes. We've been accused of having an afterglow, and I wanted to make sure everybody knows. I feel like it. Yes. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I should say what it was that did it, but like, parts of me broke open at Chino. Oh no! Actually, that was at Estuary Chino that the event happened, but the breaking took all that night. The pieces and.
So I would, after leaving, Ray and I were driving back to Sacramento, and we had a 9-hour car ride together, and both of us were just basking in it. Like, it didn't stop because we were still and the funny thing is, Ray and I spent very little of the conference together because he was at the hotel and I was at the campsite. But we talked for pretty much the whole 9 hours on the car ride home. And likewise, in anticipation, we were talking like that. And I've talked to Ray a few times. Where he's a regular at the estuary. This is the first time that he and I ever spent time one-on-one together. And he was still relatively a stranger. I would consider him an acquaintance. And by the end of that car ride, it's like, oh, Ray's a good friend. Like, I'm excited to spend the next however many years with Ray around in Sacramento.
Same
So,
Hey, everyone.
Mitch. Saint Sartori, tell us about how envious you are that you weren't at the campfire with us.
Well, I would have liked to have been there, but my wife's not ready for me to not be there with the new baby and the other kids. So, maybe the next one. Maybe the next one I'll be free to travel a little bit. So,
Congrats again, man. How's it going?
What's the official announcement on that?
February, Jerusalem.
The official
No.
announcement.
No, on the child people.
Sorry.
So we had another daughter. That's 3. So that's why I had to start my other channel to raise up suitable young men to court my daughters in the future. And yeah, so everything was good. It's babies are angry, but they're good. So yeah, it's a good thing.
So Grismina, what'd you go with for?
So her name is Elizabeth.
Okay, just making sure. I always have to check and see if anybody's naming their children after me yet, because that's like you get an achievement unlocked in the game I'm playing for that.
No, the one rule I had is like no weird trendy names and no names that like a grown up will feel weird having. So, because that's what people are like. If you can tell if people think that their baby's just an accessory based on how they name them, like they didn't consider that someday that person will be an adult and have to live with that name. So
there's songs about that. Ray mentioned how the fire hose and exhaustion brought down all the walls. Who got fire hosed? Definitely felt that same experience on the ride back to LA.
Maybe the fire hose is a metaphor for.
Yeah, I think the fire hose of information and whatever.
Information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the while now I want to make absolutely clear the official paintball for Jesus idea or fellowship airsoft tournament idea for those who don't like that one is that each church sponsors a team in a competitive league, right? So while we say this paintball for Jesus that we do at these events is paintball for Jesus, it is, but the idea itself is league competitions. That being clear, I think doing that like did a breaking open also, like was the exhaustion as Perry mentioned of Ray saying that like breaking our bodies down like that like did something. I don't know. We'd have to take people who did and did not paintball, I suppose, and compare it. But I know that finding out I can't run 10 feet without dying was very informative to me.
I knew that for a while about myself. That's why
that's like Jacob wrestling with God. Like that was important somehow that he got all worn out. So
yeah, luckily it only takes me about 10 minutes instead of the day and a half that took that fella.
Well, it's that being the exhaustion makes submission easier.
We were right. It was a metaphor.
All right, Tayo. It's Tayo, and I always say it wrong. And you don't even correct me. Tell us about your paintball experience. What was that like for you?
That was I there? I dominated the paintball arena. What are you talking about, mate? Paintball was.
Were you in Paul's group? They broke us into 2 groups, so like only one people. I guess I was the celebrity target of the second group. Sorry, guys, but Paul was in the first one.
Yeah, paintball was awesome, and I think I said to you after the fact that it is genius the physical exhaustion that takes place before all of the mental meandering that ensued over the following 2 days. It's genius. So yeah, I loved it.
No, but how'd it go? Like, did your team win? Did you get shot in the head? Where were your wounds?
We were on the first arena was the one with the creator. You could go upstairs. I got smoked within the first 30 seconds. Just put my head out to look through the window and headshot It was, and then I realized, okay, all right, you need to get up to the second floor, and then I could do some smoking myself. So yeah, that was fun. But the best part of it was when we played capture the flag, because now we're strategizing. Now you're talking to people on your team. Okay, we need people to rush, people to cover, and yeah, that's what really broke the ice. The capture the flag games.
Yeah, the one that let us respawn was a lot better than the yeah.
We had the choice whether you could get unlimited respawn, and we chose that until the last 5 minutes. Andrew was my first. When I got to America, Andrew was the first member of, apart from Jeff who picked me up. Andrew was the first member of TLC that I met, and we went to get his tattoo.
Yep.
Is
This guy right there.
that right there? So I was present when Andrew got his first tattoo.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yep. The English gang was great. You know, I heard them mispronounce many things, but I was always there to correct them. You know.
That's amazing to me. That like I don't know what, Andrew, you showed up here what 4 months ago, and now like members of our group are attending major life markings. That's something. I don't know if it's something, but it feels like it's something.
Andrew, do you want to explain what the tattoo was?
I thought it was my name.
The tattoo's the Coptic cross on my wrist. Every Copt has one, so you know, kind of.
So you can't change your mind now without cutting off your hand. That's kind of cool.
Isaac.
Yep.
Yo, Isaac.
Oh, and Johnny Mewtube I saw out there. Johnny, you're a great addition to. You're fucking amazing, man. Anyway, hi.
Which Johnny?
Nice to meet you. Johnny Mewtube.
Is he on it?
Yeah, he's Johnny Mewtube in the chat, and I didn't find like that guy I knew, and then the John I was talking to. That was one thing that I think is really neat about us coming together like that, especially in the cases of people who don't run with a single name. Is like, oh wait, you're also that guy. And just when those lock into place like that. One night, no, I would recommend camping many nights.
Yeah, if possible.
Unless Israel's terrible place to camp. I don't know.
Well, my wife went one time and she said they like stayed with Bedouins for a night or something. So I don't know. Find out how you do that, and that would be a cool experience.
You guys got camel spiders? Oh, Stella was amazing. I can't wait to get that picture.
Stella was amazing. Stella was amazing. I got back to the campsite late, and I was just, wandering around, and I just told them, "There's a dog." Oh, that, yeah.
Stella, are we talking about the beer?
The pooch.
Oh yes, the pooch. I totally forgot. We slept in the same tent.
Oh,
really?
Whoa, you slept with Stella?
Breaking news.
I could not resist.
That's one thing that got interesting because I don't remember which night it was, but like there was some heated hallucinogenic debates because like some of the orthos come hard on that, and so that was like because we have people who strongly endorse and those who like those are demons, and those conversations were the most heated ones I remember. Did you guys catch anything else that was leaning toward heat?
I feel like there was a couple guys that wanted to go in and get heated every now and then, and people just kind of tend to avoided them.
Yeah, Jacob was involved in a couple spirited dialogue, shall we say?
of course.
Of course it was.
And Jacob wanted more of that. I asked him when we were in the dining hall area. I said, "Does this remind?" I forget what they call it, the place where they study the Torah and the Talmud and all that stuff. And there's supposed to be this great sound there of people arguing with each other. And he said, "This what was that, Michael?"
The yeshiva.
Yeah, at the yeshiva, and there's a more argumentative tone, and Jacob wanted more of that argumentative tone.
Phlebas, I can confirm that there was a guy in my estuary group who swears he's got demons in him, and demons attended.
Absolutely, demons. I did not. No one attempted to perform an exorcism of my demons on me, which I was hoping would have happened because I wanted to see what would be left over afterwards.
I did
And
bring Father in
who?
to Father Eric and the guy that said he's got demon in him, and he tried to chat with Father Eric, and they were talking about exorcism. So I was hoping they were gonna go there, but they didn't.
Well, like they have professionals. Like as far as I think, the Catholics have only certain dudes that do
Right,
it.
and you need a young priest and an old priest, and we only had a young one.
But like Pentecostals should be able to just lay hands and boom, right? Like we have more than one denomination, more than one path of casting out demons, as Jesus said you guys would do, you slackers.
Christian super friends attack.
I do want to say one thing. Like of all the ortho bros and all that force that was there, I guess Michael made the point earlier that they don't evangelize, but only one person invited me to the church, like to the services, not the tour, right? And I don't, and that spoke to me a lot about that person's character. But I have uploaded to my YouTube channel the video we could not play earlier, and it should run now. There it is. Remember, Embody, the audio is from my phone and not great, but let's see. I think I can do this now. Brave tab. Yes, this one. Yes, there. Did it work? Can you guys see things? Oh, Mo has to bring it up. You have to pick one of the things that, like, do the one where it's got it and then us on the bottom, maybe.
Okay.
Yes. But you have to add to stream on the one below. There it is.
Seeing of the sun, not within the singeing of the strong sun, tall suns tinging or treacherous the tainting of the earth's air. Somewhere else where there is, where one, yes, I can tell such a key, I do know such a place, where whatever's prized and passes of us, everything that's fresh and fast flying of us, seems to us sweet of us, and swiftly done away with, undone, done with, soon done with, and yet dearly and dangerously sweet of us, with the wimple water dimple, not by morning matched face, the flower of beauty, fleece of beauty, too apt to fleet, never fleets more, fastened with a tenderest truth to its own best being and its loveliness of youth. It is the everlastingness of it is in all you. Come then your ways and airs and looks made in gear, gallantry and gaiety and grace, winning ways, airs, innocent maiden manners, sweet looks.
I might see if I can just get my group to meet.
Love locks, gay gear, going valiant girl grace. Resign them, sign them, seal them, send them, motion them with breath and with sighs, soaring sighs, deliver them. Beauty and the ghosts deliver it early now, long before death. Give beauty back, beauty, back to God. Beauty's self and beauty's giver. See, not a hair is, not an eyelash, not the least lash lost. Every hair is, hair of the head numbered. Nay, what we had light-handed left, and surely the mere mold will have waked and have waxed and have walked what with the wind while we slept. This side, that side, hurling a heavy-handed hundredfold, what while we slumbered. Oh, then weary, then why should we tread? Oh, why are we so haggard at the heart, so care coiled, care killed, so fagged, so fashed, so cogged, so cumbered? When the thing we freely forfeit is kept with a fonder care kept than we could have kept it. Far with a fonder care, and we should have lost it. Finer, fonder care kept. Where kept do, but tell us where kept. Where yonder. What is that? We fall now. I don't know, like I just just pleasure. There's a strange meaning. You cannot be humble for the rhythm. I mean, with that kind of dog.
And then I was like, hey, how old are you, boss?
Yo. You can't see me, bro, so I'm good. No face, no case. Yo.
The first T-shirt that's coming out of Anna Chino is the no face, no case T-shirt.
Leave it right, bro.
There's the miracle.
Thanks, AAA guy. There it is. I should probably cut that poor AAA man out the end of the thing before I make that public. But that's the magic of the Anna Chino campfire, ladies and gentlemen. Teo, you want to comment on that? Tayo. Oh,
You're muted, Tayo.
Yes, I remember. I remember that. That was a great conversation. I think Grizz and I were sat on the bench, watching and observing just people enjoying the fight. I was telling Grizz, just this all came from your mind out into the world, and you made this real. And stumbling out of a tent was a very dazed Johnny, who, with humility, came up to us and said, "Guys, I need help." And he had taken a bit too much, got over the edge, and yeah, it was opening up a few things that were buried, and we had an excellent conversation, just helping him to feel safe, make sure he knows that he's amongst friends. And I think the biggest thing was it felt very alone, and just needed to come out of his tent and sit with people and say, like, no, you are not alone. You are actually not alone.
It was that takes the thing of bravery, man. Like that he was strong enough to, like, 'cause other people would have just rode that in the tent by themselves the whole night. So like being strong enough to be vulnerable and reach out like that was important, I think.
Yeah. There was as well as Johnny, Kojo, the last night as well needed some guidance through some deep waters.
So maybe on that note, and then also in responding to something that Grizz said a little bit earlier, aimed both at Pentecostals and Orthodox, which I have a little bit of time in both camps.
Which camp don't you have some time in, Michael?
Calvinists. Never been there.
What was that?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. So I've watched a lot of the conversations aimed towards psychedelics because, as some of you all know, I definitely experienced some kind of like identity dissociation, which seems to have deep common threads with like psychedelic ego death use. And I've met a lot of folks within the Orthodox Church, and a lot of those conversations, Pajot runs into these people all the time, is these conversations. And these folks are like, yeah, I was messing around with psychedelics, so on and so forth. And where it seems to land is it's not that, it's just that it's dangerous, right? For me, right, having this like identity dissociation thing that wasn't at the hands of psychedelics, where there's identity dissolution, right? It's like an ego clearing out. I tell people it's a house built on sand that collapses, right? Well, that's when you're in the desert. When Peterson's talking about being in the desert, that's the desert. You don't know which way to turn, and all of a sudden you've got powers and principalities pulling you to in any given direction. So when you play around with psychedelics, that's what you're playing, right? It's a lot of revelation all at once, immediately. And I think that the way that we talk about this, like I went and saw Father Andrew Stephen Damon in Colorado in March, And so he's one half of the Lord Spirit's crew, right? And there's some of us that are now taking this position of like, let's talk about this in this ancient language, right? Let's call this stuff out for what it is. I mean, these are sacrifices at the altar of Dionysus, right? Which does bring rebirth, which does bring beauty. But my goodness, might Dionysus take a lot from you as a result of that sacrifice at that altar, right? And
I'm glad you said that, because like when I was preparing to go to this event, I kept remembering the trailer I made for Thunder Bay.
Mm.
And it has that clip from Pajot in there talking about like one of the things we're hoping to accomplish is to be able to look back at a medieval grimoire and read it with fresh eyes. So like,
yeah.
I
think one of the things Michael and I was talking about was that the estuary is kind of like where you end up after the carnival. Like it's kind of like the place where you wash up. It's the hangover.
Yes. Wow. Wow.
Really good.
Like
That's really good.
That's as I want to do the exact same reaction Vervaeke did to what Paul said in that last conversation right now. Oh, you're really onto something there, Raj. Who was it? Who are we crediting with that?
It was a conversation with Michael here.
Yeah, that's wash it. Though the truth may vary, this ship will carry our bodies safe to shore.
So I want to extend this metaphor because continuing from that conversation we're having, Michael, because it's trying to write something up as a reflection, and I think what's happening is that people are washing up at shore at the estuary. There's a port city there, and we're building arcs. It's like Vervaeke's intellectual Silk Road. It's much more like it's a port city, and the internet or life is an ocean, and you're going to be pulling people aboard.
Within the larger Christian tradition, what we might say is something like, okay, so here's Peterson's desert, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in the desert, like you're trying to find that water, and to your analogy, right? Like, okay, you wash up on shore. Well, we might think of it as looking for lighthouses,
mm-hmm.
right? And so here you are in the desert, and it's dark, and you don't know where to go, and everything is darkness, but you're looking for these little beams of light that are reflecting, that are guiding you on a path, right? And that gets at the second half of that, of what I wanted to address from Grizz, was like, okay, so exorcisms of look, everything that was going on during that entire convention was various degrees of exercising. Okay, there were conversations and topics being exercised in grappling with powers and principalities in the deepest sense, while a lot of us are in the darkness looking for a path, right, and looking for these lighthouses, right, or being led along these streams to things. So in the most serious sense, exercising isn't like some Hollywood thing where somebody's tied down to a bed, and I mean, there's some degree of that that's real, but every single time there's a little death. When Pajot's talking about these little deaths, make no mistake, he is up there proselytizing in a very serious sense about exorcism, right? And so we have this icon within the Orthodox Church of Saint George, right? Saint George, and he's got this dragon at his feet, right? Or in later renditions of that, where there's like a dragon that's chained, right? And he's got like the princess is okay, but he's got the dragon chained, and there's this taming of that ego. So we have this rationality, right, that's full of hate, right, that's full of material understanding, and this thing has to die slow pieces of death. You can try to flush it all at once with psychedelics, right? Or you can get so stressed out and so depressed and so deep into the abyss that it forces a collapse. But that's also real dangerous because you might just kill yourself.
And if you don't have the proper spirit to come in, then the house that the demons are cast out of, more demons go into it.
Yeah. And that's part of the desert danger, right? Because it's just emptied out. It's like, what's coming in now? So now we are grappling like with what Grizz is pointing at is like ancient entities here. And funny enough, Michael Satori, you pointed at that biography kind of thing of the Wheel of Time guy, and the Wheel of Time guy was really into Robert Graves, right?
Yep.
And Robert Graves took a serious deep dive into mythology and understanding these ancient things that we're dealing with, right? The nature of the white goddess and otherwise, and that I think we're at this point in time where we're having to see those things come to fruition in a way we haven't seen since a dominance of paganism.
Yeah. So the book, it was interesting. So Robert Graves, apparently he was in World War I at the same battle that Tolkien was at. And that was Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings and created his whole world as a means of wrestling with that kind of trauma. And then Graves did he did his thing. It's kind of like he just kind of made some assumptions about some stuff that kind of like, that's why it's a goddess at the central thing. Well, basically seeing like there's something wrong with men, that men are all like killing each other this way in war. So it must be that we're missing, a goddess is the one that's supposed to be in charge and not a masculine god or whatever. But and then Robert Jordan, he really wrote his thing based out of his trauma in Vietnam. I think, but it's kind of, as you're saying, like our generation does have like a desert type of trauma. It's a wandering thing. It's not like those serving in like an active war. Of course, there's some that have, but like most of the people just like don't know what the heck they're doing, and it's just that kind of lostness. So yeah, we do need to work through those things and kind of reinterpret all of the myths and everything for our day and age, which obviously I think a lot of that's what kind of goes on in this corner. But I think we probably be a little bit more specific about it, especially just in the layer of really applying it to our day-to-days. But
so that makes me think in Gurmat, in like not just Guru Granth Sahib Ji, but also in Dasam Granth, you have these different ways of describing the gods, and the three things I want to bring out. One is that the gods have home just like we do. Home is the sense of I me-ness, and it usually gets translated as ego. So the gods have ego. And in Dasam Granth Bani, there's a lot of stories about gods warring and the defeat of gods. But then in Guru Granth Sahib Ji, which is the central scripture, even though these gods have egos, they will on occasion sing of God, and they will praise God too. And so what I feel like what was happening, partially what I see, because there are people who came there to Estuary and they credit their coming there to the god Algo. And I think that's real, but something happened here where Algo was actually praising the one. And there was a breakdown in Algo's ego, Home.
Wow, that's like estuary deep. But But Manuel has said something I agree with, and that is such an infrequent occurrence that can you
Which
grab
one?
it? No, not that nonsense. Bad one. That's one. You're right, man. You're right. Iron Road. That's who you are to me. But I'm gonna kill like the part of the me shoving your randos on my channel where I can't do branding, and so I just wanted to close out that part. Bye to everybody who's watching on my channel, and I'll catch you guys later.
I think that a lot of us are slaves living under Pharaoh, but that's kind of the NPC thing. And some of the people are trying to break out of the NPC thing with the psychedelics, and then they end up in the desert. They've been liberated from the Pharaoh, but they're in the desert.
That's right. That's right. It's a progression, right? It's like
right.
So 5 years ago, right, in my I'm obsessed with listening to experts. I am triggered at people who say things in a way I don't want to hear them, right? I'm living in this way, right, from this background that I had, and then that's a house that I have, and so that collapses. Now that's the desert, right? And then it's taken a lot of grace and love people of these lighthouses, right, to take me back to where I'm embedded in the community, to where I can come back to San Antonio and go, okay, here's my spiritual home. Saw my priest in the parking lot today, and just like give him a big hug, right? And there's home, right? I can see myself in them and be lifted up. Okay, so it's like, yeah, all of that's right. It's pretty much a yes and situation with Manuel's feedback there, and and all of that. It's whether it's a big flush or these little flushes, right? Where we forgive people with some road rage in traffic or something, right? All of that is exercising. So I was like exercising our capacity to die to this like self-centeredness, right? In towards of something more beautiful, right? But I think, this is already happening where we're talking more seriously about and using ancient language and ancient understandings of things, but it's also with this weird integration of whatever the heck has happened the last 500 years, right? And so that's the postmodernism problem, whatever that is called, and whatever that becomes, right? Where we are part of a thing that is developing a different nous in some sense, right? Like a different psyche, which we're collectively sharing in, kinda, right? To more degrees or less degrees, depending. And it's a different way of thinking than what the postmodernist thing is, or the conservative liberal thing is, or what it's like different from all of that. But it's also not a full return to antiquity and an ancient way of thinking, but it's also not that far from it.
Yeah.
Well, I was saying like, okay, is it not? It's not that. It's true that it's not. Neutrality is like the biggest myth I think that's being dispelled, and obviously everybody serves a master, but the problem is that so many people have been serving a god that told the lie that he did not exist, and so that's and when that becomes people's base assumption, like obviously like religion's fake, God's not real, spiritual experience is just chemical reactions in my brain, and or whatever. It depends on how deep people go and have gone in that. And even if you could say that we're beyond that somewhat now, because that was like the heart of modernity, but it's so much of like the ground that we live in that, yeah, it's hard. It's hard for people to. That's I'm going to say, I don't know about saying exercising, or the people's eyes need to be open. They need to see the invisible thing that they've been serving. And it's interesting that that you could say the devil's had the most success in this time when he's imitated God in his invisible quality. That's made him the most powerful that he's been as far as the influence that he's had over society. So yeah, it's not a desert, but then the problem is that it's a total negative landscape. It has and that's kind of what our problem is that which is why we have to go back to ancient sources, because we have a disconnect in our immediate ancestors, like they haven't equipped us. So
that landscape problem that you're pointing to, so in Punjabi we actually have this word Satan, and it comes from Satan, but it's not the way it gets used in more regular parlance. Like you might call someone a Satan, and
is that like adversary?
No, I asked my grandfather told me it's the person who cannot speak the truth. It's not that they lie all the time; it's that they're incapable of speaking truth.
Okay. So that's the way I might even think about that as the adversary. So the Christian, so Job, the adversary, right? Adversarial to what? To that which is true, right? So it's like that which cannot participate in the truth, which is like an overarching connective thing of all that is rebellious of truth, right? And I think that might be something like what Nietzsche's getting at with resentment, right? So I think that resentment permeates all other paths that lead towards death.
Yeah.
I just want to take us back a little bit to the metaphor that Raj brought up about the port, and coupled that with, there was a comment in the chat. I think it was Lance. Yeah, just want to open up a little bit, because I think that might be right. There's a feeling in the TLC online version of it that we're all just sort of searching, but it's more than that. Where the destination isn't clear to us, some of us anyway. I know others have found their safe haven, Orthodox, Anglican, whichever where you some have found their safe haven. But a lot of us are still looking to get a ticket to jump on a ferry ride to God knows where. And yeah, this is the comment I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree with that. But so some people come to Estuary or TLC, and then they either find an arc already at the port city, or they're helping to build an arc. But then there are people hanging out at the port city, and port cities are very odd places. Like you get a strange cast of characters there because it's a meeting place from around the world, and it's a place where you could get characters like pirates, and sailors are very odd. They're marginal characters, right? But they can hang out in the port city.
Prostitutes.
Yeah, exactly. Drinking, bars, that sort of stuff.
Oh, I want to share this idea. This is something that happened a while ago that it's very connected to, like, I think, kind of what goes on in the estuary. This is a different example, because I think that really this sort of thing is happening all over the place, and we're totally unaware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had this stray dog that kind of just ended up staying outside of our house for a while. And, it's really hot here in Texas, so we were like, well, we can't really just like let this dog live under our car for forever. So we ended up taking him in and stuff, and but my wife's allergic, so we knew we couldn't keep him, but we wanted to figure out what to do, where we could bring him, and kind of went through this long process because all the shelters here are full, but we ended up finding some people that were kind of willing to help, and like met this people, like there's this whole community of like people who love stray dogs and want to take care of them, and they're like, they spend their own resources, like they have other jobs, this is like a passion that they have, and you know, so we found the lady that kind of sponsored us and paid for all the dogs' shots and everything, and we just kind of had to keep them at our house until we were finally able to get them like shipped out of there and something. And you know, it was just like seeing this thing. It's like, oh, like those people are connecting to this, like this true divine part of like creation, that like that was part of what God created humanity for, was to take care of stray dogs when they come around or whatever. But they're doing, and like it is like a deeply spiritual thing, these people are doing it, but they don't look at it that way at all. They just see it as like, how can, like, and it's funny because, you know, there's like a lot of stuff like they prefer dogs to people, some of them, you know, like dogs are nicer than a lot of people, you know, so it kind of makes sense. But I just think, like, you know, so that's like a, you know, saying like, you maybe couldn't necessarily go and tell those people like, come to an estuary, but if you have like the mindset of estuary, you could go in and start talking to the people at the dog shelter and be like, why do you like doing this? What is it about this? And you know, kind of really start to help open up their eyes and see, like, you know, that there's realities that we're unaware of that are happening. And that's just one example. You'll probably find 1,000 other examples where people are doing the same kind of thing.
Or you could bring stray dogs to Chino, you know.
So Peugeot talks with not great news sometimes, where he's like, you know, I'm sorry to say, I think things are probably going to get worse, right? I mean, there's hope at the end, right? We know where it goes, but the things get kind of worse, and I think that has something to do with when people get re-enchanted, it doesn't mean that they're going to get re-enchanted towards the good, right? And so
the performance at the Grammys.
Yeah. And when, well, so let's say that's still under a premise of a certain.
Yeah, it still is kind of they're playing at it, they're winking at it, but if there's a re-enchantment happens, that's also a kind of re-enchantment.
What I see is this weird phase where you don't think that there's a re-enchantment, and you think it's arbitrary, and you think it's just like, hey, it's not hurting anybody. What anybody else doesn't hurt anyone else. There's no overarching agencies of any kind. You don't think any of that exists. Why would you? It's just this hyper rationalist thing, but but people are still getting pulled towards those things. Then people wake up and realize, okay, there are agencies, but it doesn't mean that they are just going to like choose the good one. They may just like go, oh, well, here's this is what I think that Vervaeke is actually worried about. I think that we have an opportunity to curb the impact of an oncoming, let's say, Mars cult.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a lot of people that once enchanted, or they're already kind of in the middle of this, are being pulled towards war, right? Like a god of war. And so we have, we're at the nose, like Peterson represents sort of the nose of this, right? To steer the ship just a little bit differently, and to direct that energy into something better.
So we already have our regional cults in America, right? Like Silicon Valley is a cult of, I can't say his name, Hephaestus, right? You got Langley over there in Virginia, and that's your cult of Aries.
Well, so you got that, and then Sam Harris, when talking to the trigonometry guys, I think, give me a second, mentioned a Thanatos outbreak, which he's pointing at something like Zeus. Okay. And what is Sam Harris freaked out about? We know the kind of people that he's freaked out about. We know the thing that he's freaked out about, and it's the 2016 election, the results of that, and never letting that happen again. Okay, he's pointing at that thing, and he is worried about something that does have real potential, right? Of an energy that gets harnessed, that is, very, very Zeus, right? But could very easily get redirected towards Mars.
Well, Caesar and the God King, right, is an intermediary between Zeus and Ares.
Yeah.
Raj, can you say that one more time?
The God King, Caesar, or like Xerxes, is an intermediary between Zeus and Ares, and there's something very Caesarian about a character like Trump.
Yeah. Well, of course there is. Of course there is. I mean, this is why it's a God King, right? I mean, this language is used in those right spaces all the time. And there's a real earnestness, and you can see the beauty on both of these extremities, right? Of the high degree of grace coming from the far left, right? It's like a lot of grace, looking for a lot of grace, right? So much grace. Everybody gets grace, no matter what you want, no matter what you want to do. Grace, no matter what, all the time.
Yeah.
In abundance. And then on the other side, it's like order, right? And it's good. It's good to have order. It's good to get your life in order. It's good to clean your room. It's good to show up at work on time. It's good to get some things in order. But what about order all the time? Order everything. No grace, right? And so here we are trying to navigate like a fullness, and this is like the project of Logos. Logos is trying to have like full order and full grace at the same time, right? Not half of half, but a fullness of all of it all the time. And who else is chasing the project of Logos more than this little corner?
Because in at least in Sikhi, Nam, or which is function similar, I believe, to Logos, I would say, Nam arises in Sangat. And Sangat is that word we use for congregation, but it literally means move together. So Nam arises within Sangat. It's Dia Logos for a reason, right?
How do they translate Nam?
Name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about so this is a Karl Popper problem. So the leftist ideologies, it's like, okay, as paradoxical as it is to not tolerate the intolerant, right? Like the highest form of tolerance includes not tolerating the intolerant, right?
It's grace for everybody except for the people denying grace.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can think of like a mom. She's got her kids, and the kids are like chaos all over the place, doing whatever they want to do, and she's like, protecting that and like let that be, and then everyone can be whatever they want to be as long as because they got that love of like the allowance of doing whatever, as long as nobody tries to stop that.
Yeah.
Anybody tries to get in the way, right? You blow that up. So then you got the other side of that of like a potential tyranny, right? Because if I don't know why I'm going to use a mother-father thing, but dad comes home, he sees that there's there's this overprotection of letting the kids do whatever they want to, and he's going to try to like put in some orderliness to this, but he might overdo it. It's like, Dad, why are you being such a Nazi? Yeah, exactly. Right? He's going to lose his mind and become like dad fascist, right? And Vervaeke and Peterson are worried about the lessons from history when there's too much chaos, and then all of a sudden there's an overly ordering force, right? And so here, like we all exist in this weird space where we're sort of like not in these things. We hit a desert and are seeing these things move, right? And figuring out and trying to figure out how to aim and hopefully how to steer enough of the ship with us to prevent catastrophe like we saw at the beginning of the 19th century.
Before we go further, I gotta say thanks, Tayo, for helping me get the tat. Legit, it was so awesome, like having you guys come down and get this whole fucking little corner experience that's like merging with my little journey. Absolutely amazing. So yeah,
And
you and Anthony.
The objective world touch.
Yeah. All right, go for it.
I love you, brother.
You too, man.
For Trey's question, I was gonna say the estuary is based on a grace in order to get your life in order, right?
Based on grace in order to get your life in order. Also,
I mean, I do think we're all like seeking the God of our own understanding, right? To use the AA line.
Mm-hmm. And that's a kind of order, right?
Mm-hmm.
I prefer the F word, fellowship.
Yeah. The fellowship involves a kind of order.
Yeah, I'm not. Yes, it does. It does. I'm not arguing I'm not arguing for lack of order. That's no one wants chaos. But I think to Michael's point, that equilibrium is not easy to achieve.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the fellowship is. The fellowship is that balance between the order and the grace, where you can have an estuary protocol and everyone's participating, and then you have this conversation that develops out of that, right? That's spontaneous and almost revelatory. Like no one really knows what you're going to end up talking about, but the topic and conversation reveals itself to the whole group.
Yeah, that's the part I was pointing out exactly about the order thing, because there is a spontaneity. It allows room for
I think there's like a resolution size of like how. So we figured out like the individual is too small of a unit for like sovereign like responsibility, but like the nation is probably too big of a unit, and so we just got to figure out like what the right space is or the right amount of people, and then figure out how those units interact with other units.
So it's got to stack up, right? Like the singular person is the right place to kind of order your, I would say, your passions or something like that. But then you have to have a family and then a local community type structure, a local government. And like we just go from me, myself to federal government. It's like there's a whole bunch of mediating structures in between that.
This is what Peterson is pointing out in the Exodus series, right? Is what happens with Moses and the Israelites and the way ordering has to happen, because if it all rolls up too much to Moses, the whole thing will collapse.
Yeah, well, Catholics use this term a lot. At least that's how I hear using it a lot. Subsidiarity.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of like you got to make this fractal pattern go up and down?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I prefer sphere sovereignty. It has some distinctions in that, there are indivisible units that are like that are the because you can have like a top down, you can have all those subsequent things, but you can have a weakness at the top. There needs to be some, like, like the family should be like a unit that's like only the family gets to be in charge of a family, not the state, so
Right.
and like and it's interesting too, because how those things are made up is really important, because like you can't have a fully homogenous family. You need to have a man and a woman, which are very not the same type of people, but that's what makes a family work. I mean,
but like
there
with
are
the family
people that will
example,
contest that, but
with the family example, like, the state shouldn't be able to tell the family what to do, but maybe your extended family should be able to have influence on the nuclear family, or the local church might be able to have some influence on the local family.
over certain areas of what that,
Right.
like there's a central place where the sovereignty of the family is within that unit, but then as to how that family interacts with a slightly larger community, they can't just say we are in charge and we're going to do whatever we want. They do have to then respect other families or other parts of the
Right,
bigger family.
because if that respect's not there, then you run into the same atomized individual problem, just one level abstracted. Yeah.
And if you go all the way up, that's when you get wars, because you have nations fight, imposing their own sovereignty over one another.
So, in touching the narrative world, May 21st, when we were at the parish, was the Saints' Day for Saints Constantine and Helen. And Andrew.
You gotta unpack that for me.
Yeah. Well, what you have is you have the mother, right, and you have the son, right, taking 400 plus years of civil war, right, and establishing a structure, right, of enough grace to allow the heretics to still have their church in the main city in Constantinople, right? And all these things. So it's like the cosmos within Christ. It's like we can allow any of these things to exist under us and within the larger kingdom, right? But we're also going to put the state right below and in submission to that which is higher, right? And so the kind of structure that you guys are talking about and the lessons learned from Moses and otherwise, right? That was a reawakening, but it took 400 years of civil war for them to get there, right? So I think we're grappling very much so with the same pattern, the same problems, and it's like, but how big did the Civil War problem have to get until we're willing to possibly have something better? I think that's the project of the ark. I think that's what Peterson's attempting to get at.
Yeah. I think a good concept to talk about is this idea of like reciprocal opening and this reciprocal narrowing. It's like this idea that if we, this is going to sound super weird, but if we like transcend enough, we'll be able to see more, right? To recognize the good in other people's traditions, right? Like if we're not so attached to just the dogma and the, whatever particularities, we'll be able to see what's good about other people's, traditions and spiritual life and whatnot. So,
Tell me how you guys feel, but what, like, at the conference, it's like a collective reciprocal opening that allowed us all to glimpse something in common.
I gotta go back to work, but I'll be listening.
Bye, Michael.
Hello. Hi.
Yo, what's up, Chad?
I was just thinking about because Michael, you mentioned. I think it's Michael.
Which one?
The ortho The one I got to sit with Rajan on an estuary
sir.
meeting at the end.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
You mentioned that you said something just kind of in passing that what you think Jonathan Peugeot is worried about, and it struck me because to me when I hear him talk, I don't feel like I hear him being worried. I think that
Oh, sorry.
I get the sense that there's like this like there's almost like this inevitability, like some of us talk about stuff as if something is going to happen, and then others of us are like, I believe that we're already in the avalanche, like it's happening. And so I'm not sure if worry, I don't know. I'm curious how we might approach these conversations if we didn't have the word worry.
So with Jonathan in particular, I think there is a level of concern, not necessarily about the pattern that's playing out, but his talk about disappointment was for a very specific audience at the conference. And I don't think I was the prime demographic for that talk.
Right.
And like, you have a lot of these Orthodox brothers rather than ortho bros. These Orthodox brothers, and I think partially Jonathan's talk, that first talk, was a little bit of a how do you say, a little bit of
it was a message to them, wasn't it?
A little bit of preemptive care for them.
Yeah. No, and you know what's interesting to me was being on the other side of being disappointed, and then seeing the value of it. It's just a mirror all over the place on that on that talk, and it was really great. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so happy he's doing this, because it's kind of like what I like to tell people who find themselves in a really rigid position. I'm cheering you on, dude. Like, yes, go through it and pop out the other side, because there is a if you're able to, well, if you're strong enough to hold on for the ride, well, good luck. But once your grip is torn away from this thing that you're grasping to, there's something so freeing about it. So I really loved that. So anyways, yeah, I'm just thinking about this idea about like how difficult would it be for us to have a conversation and not use the word worry or problem or any of that.
We might talk about both and here, right? Because let's say if you remove any kind of okay, you could get into like a burying your talents problem, right? Where how do you make things better, or to produce fruit or something? You just bury all of it, don't spend the money, and then you have the exact same amount of money at the end, and so you don't do anything with it. So there's no worry in that, you just bury it. The other part is risk.
I didn't say not to worry. I was just saying, so the point of what I'm asking is there a way to get at some of what we'd like to get at while trying a different tunneling method? That's all.
I'm glad you got booked, Chad.
Chad, I would tend to agree, because there's also a sense in which worry becomes an idol, right? It's like a god of fear that you worship at instead of some kind of trust. So it's a weird thing to navigate, because on one hand, it's like you have to let something be done through you, and on the other hand, you can't obsess about the potentials. You're gonna find plenty of ortho bros, so to say, or people within trad communities especially. They're like rejecting modernity and all freaked out. I've walked that path, and maybe I'm still coming out of it. They're like, oh, I gotta go move to the woods, and I gotta go, I gotta set up a bunker, and I'm gonna buy a bunch of ammo, and like I'm gonna have.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because like you just said, like rejecting it, but they don't reject it. They only verbalize that they want to They want. It's like this. I've done the same thing, guys. It's like rejecting modernity. It's like, no, we're not going to reject it. It's here. We're using it right now.
Also, you don't have the power to reject modernity.
That's
it's
right.
so much bigger than you. Like,
So this is where we get to Noah, right? And this is also where we get to the Great Commission, right? So the Great Commission is called to like baptize the nations, but it's easy to think of that as like tribe. Here's all of these things. Here's modernity. Here's all that is maybe not oriented towards. Well, again, Noah, coming from a fallen people, but he's able to use that same technology to build an ark, right? And so there's a redemption or a baptizing of that which was used for evil, let's say, but can be turned to use toward the good, right? And you can't just go and run away to make that happen. This is the comedy of Jonah. Like, oh, I don't want to go and face modernity. I don't want to go and face Babylon. They're just a bunch of, right. Like, yeah, you can try to go hide, but I'm going to put you in a whale, buddy.
Yeah, it's just another way of grasping, right? We'll just exchange one grasp for the next.
Right.
We don't realize we do that. Sorry.
Bye, Andrew.
Mm-hmm. Have a good one, y'all.
Bye, Andrew. Thanks for the book.
So there's some far-ish right or considered far-ish right philosopher. I don't remember exactly which one. I'm not even going to mention the names. That talk about how the West hasn't even caught up to the Greeks yet, right? And the idea of this is something like how we see agencies. If we don't start seeing them under, I think that largely what he's getting at, until we get to a point of seeing them under hypostasis, personhood, right? And we see road rage as Aries. Until we start seeing the names of what we're dealing with, right? Then we might continue to be under the delusion of thinking it doesn't exist.
Do we want to get there? That's what Jonathan preaches and what the author bros. I don't like that term, but it's so good. You have to keep using it. What the is that
well, I'm just worried about the write-ups that come up in other areas where they start talking about ortho bros in a derogatory sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we're just being playfully loving when we see it.
Like, it's been easy, but I've been thinking about it, and it's like, will you shift word? That's too ripe for being mistranslated.
Yes, it is, and I catch myself saying derogatory as well. So you're
exactly
right. Really right on that. The Eastern Orthodox, my Eastern Orthodox brothers, my hesitant to make that step is because I am I could give you all of your complaints about Protestantism. I'm right there with you, but yet I'm still in this Protestant thing because I look at what Jonathan said. I'm like, if we go that deep, we're bringing up where there will be emanation of powers that we don't understand.
I gotta tell you, I think what's happening right now is manifesting them.
So in Gurbani, one of the names for God is Nirname, the one without name. So one of the ways we commune with him is name, but God, the God is nameless, is the one without name. And so if you're giving that privilege to any of these other gods, you're in for a bad time.
I hear
it sounds
you.
very Jewish to me, actually.
Yeah.
Actually, I think this is actually what I think somehow, I don't know, maybe it's a God thing, but somehow the stupid drunks figured that out, and it's worked for, I think, the betterment of anybody who comes in contact with these people.
And I'm not saying you can't have names for gods. Like names for God or the god are very important, especially in Sikhi. But
right, but maybe when we're at dinner with strangers, no.
Right.
So what strikes me as potentially the inevitable stages of this are, one, you tried to ignore it, but it started to manifest so real that you go, oh my gosh, look at what this is, and you recognize the pattern and you recognize it under a certain name. But then, and that gets bad. Okay, that gets bad. I get it. The next step is the nameless and the sun who connects with the nameless, something like that, logos, let's say, right, which is emanating from that which is higher and nameless and bigger, helps you see that, like Paul would say, it's that those things are to be diminished as works of the flesh, right? Logos takes power out of it, right? And the only law of the spirit is in logos, let's say. The rest of it is diminished to the fallen flesh, which has to be crucified.
Can you say that in a different way? I'm not understanding.
Yeah, I know that's very Christianese.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can even, I'm like, okay.
I picked up some of that.
So
that's because you're a genius, Kyle.
No, it's because
like,
I'm charismatic.
You feel like you could explain it?
No, not as well as.
Okay.
If you phrase it well, I still understand it, then yeah, I probably could.
Okay, so first you're like, science, we've got our own tree of good and bad, and we know how things work, and we're in control, right? And we don't have to worry about the invisible.
Yeah.
That's not really a thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute you.
Sorry,
go on. I'll just mute your chat.
So you go down that road, and then agencies start popping up, and then you recognize them. It's like, oh, that's Paul. Oh, that's Aries. Oh, that's this thing. Oh, that's that thing, right? But by the time you recognize it, you're already in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that what? Sorry, just this is the part I thought I understood. That this is what Jonathan's warning of. This is Jonathan's sort of prediction will be too strong a word, but his intuition is that this is where we're heading. Is that correct?
We're already watching some of these things manifest in a way where it's like how you get Dennis Prager or somebody that's like,
we are here.
Yeah. It's like
we've been here for a little while. Some of us are waking up in the desert.
That's right. So, wow. There's agencies, wow, that are shared, that are not localized. Yep.
We're waking up in the desert and we see that over there is a bunch of ball worshippers.
Yeah, man. Yeah, no kidding. And so then it's like, what do? That's the return of the king. Okay. So the war always prompts a return of the king, right? And, I'd like to think that the pendulum of obedience and rebellion to the king can be, it's like what do I want to say? It's like you can speed up the return. There's always, no matter where you're at on the pendulum swing, you can always turn back towards obedience, right? You can always turn back, and that's the prodigal son journey, right? At any point, the son could have turned around and got back. He didn't have to reach the pig pen,
right? And so I think, like, yes, it's gonna get worse, but it's not gonna get. It's gonna get worse, but it doesn't have to get equally as bad in all places.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's inevitable, right?
Yeah.
It's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse for some, and not as worse for others. But it's going to get worse, and some people are going to get very rich, and they're not going to feel the effects of worse until maybe way, way, way later.
But I think
people
that
are.
there's
Michael.
even some people where it's an opportunity for it to be better. Like this is a crude example. It's not exactly right, but in during the gold rush in California, the people who got rich weren't the people who were out there looking for gold. It was the people who recognized that they needed to sell stuff to the miners.
Yep, shovels. All the merchants.
Yeah, Michael, really quickly, just going back to the Return of the King mythology. My worry is that before we get David, there'll be a Saul, and how many people will recognize Saul as not? There's just we need a king. It's just we need a king. There is no clear. There's no consensus on which type of king we need, but there is consensus that we need a king. I think that's I think that's the state we're in. That a king needs to emerge, a king needs to emanate, whichever word you want to use. And I think whichever one that does, there'll be a lot of people just flocking to that king just because that king is needed.
So, are we talking about actually politically? Like, are we saying that there's a sense that people are searching for the strong man?
That's a really interesting word to use. One. So what I would say is that what hastens the king's return is the way we return to the king. Okay.
Right.
So our hearts, right? So in the Christian story, it's like, okay, so the Christians are turning their hearts back to the Father, right? And what do you get? You get 400 years later, right? Through that obedience and through the sacrifice and through these terrible things that happen, right? There's a grace that is brought to allow immediate, a degree of peace, right, in heaven on earth in some sense. So there is like a real, actual embodiment of like a king that happens, but it's like you can't focus on that. You can't focus on that. You have to deal with your own heart and your own return, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I'm asking this question about the politics. It's like I'm on my journey. I've submitted. Well, I'm almost there when I join the Khalsa, God willing. Then I'll have submitted to my king, right? And that's a completely different king than this desire for this this political thing.
Yeah.
Is it completely different? I'm asking. That's a genuine question. Is it? Does it?
Well, that's what I'm also. I guess I said that with confidence, but
who here is trying to get to heaven?
So I might say that the kingdom is at hand, right?
What's that mean? I don't know what that means.
I think I said John the Baptist, and Jesus Christ was saying that as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Well, when we're focused on this like the highest of the invisible, right? I'm trying to not go too hard on Christianese here, right? So, but so it's like you're too focused on the highest good of the invisible. It's like, okay, well, in order to manifest that means a dying of the horizontal, right, to meet at an intersection of these things, right? So that, but I know that sounds abstract, Chad. What we might say is like, Christ in your heart connects you with heaven, right? Heaven is brought on earth in our relationship with God, right? And we actually, and I mean this in the most serious sense, we actually are experiencing and embodying and participating in heaven. And this is not to diminish what happens after our flesh passes away. It's not to diminish that at all. It's, yes, also that.
So
So what about Raj?
What I would say is that anyone obedient to the to the highest good at the top of the hierarchy, right? Anyone obedient to that is anyone obedient to that. But the fruits manifest, right? It's like, is it love for God with all your heart, soul, and mind? Is it love for your neighbor as yourself, right? Is there joy, peaceness, kindness, self-control, hope, right? If these things exist, then you know that the flesh is being killed, is being mortified, right? And that the highest can work through you, right? And so, just because somebody doesn't say Jesus because they realized it's actually Joshua,
Right. Sorry, Raj. I wasn't trying to make that uncomfortable. That was that wasn't my aim. I don't know. I believe in this concept mostly of I'm not sure if I'm gonna. I don't know what that means. Get to heaven or whatever. So I think God would. I really believe that God called me to help you get there, whatever that means.
Well,
and I think.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking about the Orthodox Church, how beautiful it was, and how the priest there was saying that this is God's kingdom on earth, right? Like this building is actually inside of heaven on earth, and it's an overwhelming artistic jewel. And the thing that I was thinking was that level of beauty, I saw it in the hearts of, Paul Vanderklay and John Van Donk. And it's like, yeah, his life is as beautiful as that church is.
Amen, brother. That's very, very Protestant of you.
David, were you in Chino?
Oh yeah, I was there.
Yes, he was.
Okay.
And I refused to call him David. I called him Lost Cause throughout.
Yeah, I was there. It was it was very trippy for everything to come together because I actually I moved out to California for a little bit, and St. Andrews was the church that I went to. So it was so weird for like all of those things to come together. It was pretty wild. The community there was beautiful for sure.
Did you stop by the campsite?
No, I didn't. Or you probably would have remembered me, I assume.
Yeah.
It's pretty wiped after those days, man.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I know it's like I feel like I met so many people, but I maybe only met like 15% of the people who were actually there.
Yeah. I saw it kind of by the size. That's how it would be, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of joined in while you were talking about orthodoxy and that sort of stuff, and so because I'm probably one of the only people I realize who looked into orthodoxy and then decided not to go any further. Everybody else kind of got really fervent about it, just because it was just like a legalism or whatever, and it was even worse than most Protestants. So I was like, yeah, I'm out. Which is kind of interesting because one of my buddies who's like super fervorous about it all, who I thought would, be there for life, is starting to be like, yeah, I kind of like, I don't know, I would say what, year and a half maybe since he's been going, he's starting to feel the same way and be like, yeah, I just want to go to a smaller church that's not full of internet memesters and that sort of thing. And so it's also interesting how this corner went from like Protestant bashing to, not like really, I'm over exaggerating, but like Protestants were the enemy to Ortho Bros are the enemy. It's, I don't know, it's very funny how quickly things move, I suppose.
People will be people.
So I think that's the preventative medicine that Jonathan was trying to provide.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, that's
anywhere you go.
I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
No, go ahead.
This is still the world.
Anywhere you go, there's disappointment in the leadership, and the people, right? And that, and so that the little deaths of what we're experiencing, you know, and what helps you find home, right, is being able to take folks who say some crazy stuff and maybe wouldn't be friends with, and you know, it's all these problems, and go, let me submit myself to my family anyways, even though I don't get along with them. It's not, instead of,
Right.
I lived in this world of like people that always wanted their chosen family.
Yeah.
Right. And they're rejecting their real family. They want to find their chosen family, their drinking buddies, the people who agreed with them politically, this thing and that thing. And there's a submission that has to happen in order for body to exist, right? In towards the highest good, right? Where it's a dying of what I want, and it's like yes, here's this guy that's showing up at church, and he's like a Putin apologist, and you know, and he's obsessed with the Byzantine church, and it's like whatever got you there, it's okay, right? Whatever the reasons are that you came in the door, it's okay, because it's going to take time of these little slow deaths of working on your heart, right, in order to bind you together into a spiritual family. And that's what that really looks like. It's about legalism.
So what do they call a family before we started calling a family a family?
A tribe,
like, what's an
maybe?
older word for family? Is that what you're asking, Chad?
Well, the word that we use is, we're not using it. It's not, we're misusing the word. The word family has been appropriated. It's not. So its origins means, it means like a body of slaves. So, like,
I mean,
look
what,
at
like a
body of
tribe or
slaves?
something?
Yes, if you look at the etymology of the word, it's a slave. That's what a family is.
I'd be curious to look into the etymology too, but there's a sense in which if everybody in a family is a slave to each other, yeah, that's sort of the point.
Yes, right. Because like it would be.
Oh yeah,
like,
Snowden. From Mullis.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I suppose, I wonder if, like, I don't know, this is like totally meandering, but like, since pretty much in history it was like 80 to 90% slaves and then like 10% royalty or something, it's like that would kind of be natural, because it was like the only other family would be some sort of like ruling family of some kind. So I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I think about it sometimes because we throw that word around like it's like, oh, family. And it's like, well, I don't.
So that experience that I was describing at the by the roadside, where Ray and I got gas and Subway sandwiches.
Yeah.
The place where I saw people treating each other with full recognition of each other was a family that came out of a car, right? I think that's the place where I saw the thing that felt like whatever was happening at Shuari or at Chino. This wall that existed between me and the employee at Subway, that wall was not there between the brother and sister who got out of a car and who were, I think the sister kicked the brother in the butt or something like that.
So Chad, how we might talk about some of this is like, okay, submission all over the place, right?
Yeah.
It's submission to each other. And then even the all of the submission to each other is the bride, and the bride submits to the bridegroom, but the bridegroom, Logos, submits himself to us, right? So it's like, it's submission all the way down. It's turtle all the way down, right?
Right. There's like that idea of asking, you will receive. Like that's God's submission to you. And it's not the prosperity gospel of asking you will receive, but like this, you see this all the time in Gurbani. Like whatever I ask for, my husband gives that to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for throwing a little wrench in our thingy here. I was just thinking about it's a word I hear us use a lot, and
No,
I want us to consider us when we use these things. What are we really saying here?
Yeah.
I think body is one of the best ways to understand it, but it's body that is aimed towards selflessness rather than self-centeredness. I've also been a part of bodies that are like grievance-based bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So
resentment,
like the leftist groups who like get together because they hate somebody else. Okay,
right.
like here we got to kill the 1%. We're gonna eat the rich, right? We're gonna eat the rich. So you find the other and you bind together by the other. And I think that the only liberation from that, because that's what basically every other body is, they come around to get together with a common enemy, a scapegoat, right? And the only liberation from that is to die ourselves, right? Is to find, to participate in being the scapegoat in our own heart, right? And this dying of your own ego instead of finding the other.
Right. Well, and that's one of those things we all heard Peterson say that was very, very capturing. I'm not sure I'm hearing him say much. Maybe it's because I'm not listening as much anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But I think that's what makes family, right? Because the minute that the family finds a common enemy, it's like, oh, this evil uncle, or oh, dad's a jerk, or whatever, the family starts breaking down, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's only when there's forgiveness, and like some degree of, oh, look at this, is he on the plane right now?
So I wanted to read something. This is a book that I read back in like 2018, or not even like 2015, 2016. From 2017 is when it came out. Timothy Morton. He's from the school of philosophers called object-oriented ontologists. And what he's working through in this book is how to make it so communism functions in light of being able to see the existence of the planet, the world, kind of, because communism doesn't see anything beyond economics. And his description of nature is the symbiotic real is a weird implosive whole in which entities are related in a non-total ragged way. And like that just seems like a picture of chaos, right? Sorry.
No, it's like, is that like an ecology?
Yeah, like he's referring to ecology, but his use of the word implosive whole, that phrase, what he means by that is instead of the sum being more, that the whole being more than the sum of the parts, what he says is that the whole is actually smaller than the sum of its parts.
Oh.
And that seems like this complete inversion of, like it's an inverted way of thinking.
Interesting. Well, I mean, in some way, that's how we, if we're honest, that's how we experience things.
Right. Teo, you were gonna say something?
No, you guys carry on.
I'm gonna mute because I gotta screw some stuff in.
All right.
Yeah, I think I actually got to go tend to some things as well. So I'm gonna peace out, guys. Teo, you're muted.
Yeah, I'll say I'm just gonna land the plane here because it's been going for nearly 4 hours. Enjoyable as it is, I've got things to do in real life as well.
Yes.
So,
hi guys.
Any last words?
It's a shame not to be able to hug you like I was able to not too long ago.
David, last words. Bye, everyone.